The explosion at the Missouria embassy shatters the quiet Washington evening. Darren Rice, human diplomat, sprints toward the smoldering ruins. His heart pounds as he navigates the chaos, emergency vehicles' lights painting the scene in harsh reds and blues. Darren pushes past a group of hesitant onlookers, both human and alien. He spots movement in the wreckage, two small figures huddled together. Missourian children, their iridescent scales shimmer in the firelight as they tremble, surrounded by the bodies of their adult compatriots. "It's okay," Darren says, approaching slowly. "I'm here to help." The sisters, one adolescent and one barely more than a toddler, look up with wide, multifaceted eyes. Darren kneels beside them, offering a reassuring smile. He reaches out, and after a moment's hesitation, the older sister takes his hand. A commotion erupts behind them. Darren turns to see the arrival of the Intergalactic Child Welfare Agency. Their hovering vehicles descend, kicking up dust and debris. A stern-faced xenorelocation officer steps out. "These children must be placed immediately," the officer announces, voice amplified by a translator. "If no suitable guardian is found, they'll be deported to Missouria." Darren's jaw clenches. He knows the political situation on the Missourian home world, unstable at best, dangerous at worst. He looks at the sisters, sees the fear in their eyes. "I'll take them," Darren says, standing. The declaration sends a ripple of shock through the gathered crowd. Humans and aliens alike stare at him in disbelief. The ICWA officer blinks all four eyes. "You?" the officer asks. "A human?" Darren nods, his resolve strengthening. "I'm a diplomat. I have the resources and the willingness to care for them." The officer hesitates, mandibles clicking in agitation. Finally, he nods. "Very well. The urgency of the situation leaves us little choice. You'll have temporary custody, pending review." Within the hour, Darren leads the sisters, Phoebe and Zara, he learns, into his apartment. The girls look around with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Darren's mind races, cataloging everything he needs to learn. Missourian dietary needs, sleep cycles, cultural norms. He sets up makeshift beds, using every spare blanket and pillow he owns. As he tucks them in, his tablet pings with an urgent message. Earth-Missourian relations are deteriorating rapidly in the wake of the explosion. Accusations fly from both sides. Darren's heart sinks as he reads a notification about an upcoming hearing. He must justify his guardianship of Phoebe and Zara before a joint human-alien committee. The political climate grows more volatile by the hour. As the sisters finally drift into an uneasy sleep, Darren begins his research. He pores over Missourian physiology texts, cultural guides, and diplomatic reports. His eyes widen as he uncovers hints of a deeper mystery surrounding the embassy explosion. Could it have been more than an accident? Darren glances at the sleeping sisters, their scaled skin glistening in the dim light. He realizes that unraveling this mystery might be the key to securing their future and preventing further conflict between Earth and Missouria. With determination, Darren begins to piece together the puzzle. He knows the road ahead will be challenging, but as he looks at Phoebe and Zara, he's certain of one thing. He's the only one who stepped up to raise these alien sisters without parents, and he won't let them down. Darren's fingers flew across the tablet's surface, absorbing every scrap of information he could find on Missourian physiology and culture. The soft glow of the screen illuminated his determined face as he glanced periodically at the sleeping forms of Phoebe and Zara. As the first rays of dawn crept through the windows, Darren realized the enormity of the task before him. His apartment, perfectly suitable for a human bachelor, was woefully inadequate for two Missourian children. He set his tablet aside and got to work. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Darren contacted a specialist company to install a state-of-the-art air filtration system designed to replicate the atmospheric conditions of Missouria. The technicians worked efficiently, filling the apartment with the hum of machinery and the scent of new electronics. "There you go, Mr. Rice," the lead technician said, wiping his brow. "This should keep the air quality stable for your guests." Darren nodded gratefully, noting the slight hesitation in the man's voice. He knew his decision to take in the Missouria sisters was far from normal, but he couldn't dwell on that now. Next came the gravity controls. Darren watched as workers installed panels throughout the apartment, allowing him to adjust the gravitational pull to match Missourian standard. As Phoebe and Zara tentatively explored their new environment, Darren saw their movements become more fluid and natural. "How's that feel?" he asked, crouching down to their level. Zara, the younger sister, chirped happily and did a little hop, her iridescent scales shimmering with the movement. Phoebe, more reserved, simply nodded, but Darren caught a glimmer of appreciation in her multifaceted eyes. Despite these improvements, Darren knew he needed expert help. He reached out to Dr. Marcus Holt, a renowned xenobiologist specializing in non-terrestrial species. Dr. Holt arrived at the apartment, his arms laden with charts and nutritional supplements. "Mr. Rice," he said, extending a hand, "I must say, your situation is unique." Darren ushered him inside. "I appreciate you coming, Doctor. I'm in over my head here." For the next few hours, Dr. Holt examined the sisters, taking careful measurements and asking Phoebe a series of questions through a translator. Zara, too young to fully understand, clung to her sister's side. "Their physical condition is surprisingly good, considering the trauma they've endured," Dr. Holt said, reviewing his notes. "But their diet needs immediate attention. Missourians require specific mineral compounds not found in Earth food." He handed Darren a detailed meal plan and a list of supplements. "Follow this, and we'll monitor their progress closely." As Dr. Holt prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Mr. Rice, what you're doing is remarkable. If you need any further assistance, don't hesitate to call." Darren felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had an ally in this strange new world he'd entered. His moment of calm was short-lived. A sharp knock at the door made Phoebe and Zara flinch. Darren opened it to find a stern-faced man in a crisp suit. "Agent Jack Reeves, Interplanetary Security Bureau," the man said, flashing a badge. "I need to ask you some questions about the embassy incident." Darren's stomach tightened, but he nodded and let the agent in. Reeves's eyes darted around the apartment, taking in the newly installed equipment and the two Missourian children huddled on the couch. "Quite a setup you've got here, Mr. Rice," Reeves said, his tone neutral but his gaze sharp. "Mind telling me why a human diplomat suddenly decides to play guardian to a couple of alien kids?" Darren kept his voice steady. "They needed help. I was there. It's as simple as that." Reeves raised an eyebrow. "Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've inserted yourself into a politically charged situation with some very convenient timing." The questioning continued, Reeves probing for any connection between Darren and the embassy attack. Darren answered truthfully, but he could feel the weight of suspicion in every question. As Reeves prepared to leave, he turned back. "I'll be watching the situation closely, Mr. Rice. For everyone's sake, I hope your intentions are as pure as you claim." The door closed behind the agent, leaving Darren with a growing sense of unease. He looked at Phoebe and Zara, their alien features a stark reminder of the challenges ahead. Darren knew he needed legal help. He reached out to Sarah Bryant, an attorney specializing in human-alien relations and interspecies adoption cases. Sarah arrived the next day, her professional demeanor softening as she saw the Missouria sisters. "Mr. Rice, I won't sugarcoat this. Your situation is unprecedented, and it's likely to become a focal point in human-Missouria relations." She laid out a strategy for the upcoming guardianship hearing, emphasizing the need for character witnesses and detailed documentation of Darren's efforts to provide for the sisters. As Sarah spoke, Phoebe tugged on Darren's sleeve. Through the translator, she began to speak about the day of the explosion. Her words were fragmented, clouded by trauma, but one detail stood out: a mysterious Missouria visitor at the embassy just before the attack. Darren's mind raced. Could this be a crucial piece of the puzzle? He made a mental note to reach out to his old colleague, Ambassador Michael Blackwood, for any unofficial intelligence. The sound of angry voices outside interrupted his thoughts. Darren rushed to the window to see a crowd gathering, their faces twisted in anger. At the forefront stood Senator Robert Hawkins, his voice carrying over the din. "We demand the removal of these alien children from Earth," Hawkins shouted. "They pose a security risk and have no place in our society." The crowd roared in agreement. Darren's heart pounded as he saw a small group break away, moving towards the building's entrance. "Sarah, help me with the girls," Darren said urgently. He activated the apartment's emergency protocols, reinforced shutters sliding into place over the windows. As the sound of the mob grew louder, Darren held Phoebe and Zara close, their alien forms trembling against him. He knew that this was just the beginning of their struggles, and the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty. As the sound of the angry mob faded, Darren's mind raced. He knew he needed help, and fast. With trembling hands, he reached for his comm device and dialed a familiar number. "James, it's Darren. I need your help." James Cooper's gruff voice came through the speaker. "Darren, what's going on?" "It's a long story," Darren said, glancing at Phoebe and Zara huddled together on the couch. "Can you meet me at the usual place in an hour?" An hour later, Darren sat across from James in a dimly lit corner of their favorite cafe. The bustling noise of the other patrons provided a cover for their hushed conversation. James leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "So, you've got 2 alien kids and a mob after you. What do you need from me?" Darren took a deep breath. "I need you to look into something. There was an anonymous tip about the embassy attack. I can't investigate myself without raising suspicions, but you." James nodded, understanding. "I've got contacts. I'll see what I can dig up." As James set to work, Darren turned his attention to another pressing matter. He needed someone who could help care for Phoebe and Zara, someone who understood their needs better than he could. After days of searching and vetting potential candidates, Darren found Lyra, a Missouria refugee with experience in childcare. When she arrived at the apartment, Phoebe and Zara's eyes lit up at the sight of a familiar face. Lyra's scales shimmered a soft blue as she knelt before the sisters. "Hello, little ones," she said in their native tongue. "I'm here to help." Darren watched as Lyra gently coaxed the girls out of their shells, teaching them Earth customs while preserving their Missouria heritage. Her presence was a godsend, allowing Darren to focus on the looming guardianship hearing and the investigation into the embassy attack. The media circus surrounding Darren's unusual guardianship situation showed no signs of abating. Lisa Martinez, a prominent GNN reporter, requested an interview. Against his better judgment, Darren agreed. The day of the interview, Darren sat stiffly under the bright studio lights. Lisa smiled warmly, putting him at ease. "Mr. Rice," she began, "what made you decide to take in these Missouria children?" Darren paused, choosing his words carefully. "In that moment, I saw 2 scared kids who needed help. Their species didn't matter. They needed someone, and I was there." The interview aired later that week, presenting a sympathetic portrayal of Darren's efforts. Public opinion began to shift, with many viewing his actions as a beacon of hope for interspecies relations. However, the positive attention came at a cost. Darren's comm device buzzed incessantly with notifications of attempted breaches on his personal and professional accounts. A group calling themselves Earth First had launched a series of cyber attacks, trying to uncover any information they could use against him. Darren spent sleepless nights strengthening his digital defenses, all while preparing for the guardianship hearing. The stress was taking its toll, but he couldn't afford to let his guard down. One evening, as Darren pored over legal documents, his comm device lit up with an incoming call from James. "Darren, I've got something," James said, his voice low and urgent. "There's a connection between the embassy explosion and global tech industries. Their CEO, Victor Hartley, has been pushing for increased military contracts, specifically geared towards a potential conflict with Missouria." Darren's blood ran cold. "Are you saying they orchestrated the attack?" "I don't have concrete proof yet, but the evidence is pointing that way." Before Darren could respond, there was a sharp knock at the door. He opened it to find Agent Jack Reeves, his face grim. "Mr. Rice, we need to talk," Reeves said, stepping inside. "We've uncovered evidence of Missourian involvement in the embassy attack. A group called the Purist Collective infiltrated the embassy staff. They're extremists, aiming to sabotage peace efforts and provoke a war." Darren's head spun. Human weapons manufacturers and Missourian extremists, both pushing for conflict. The implications were staggering. As Reeves left, promising to keep Darren informed of any developments, a crash echoed through the apartment. Darren sprinted to the living room to find the windows shattered, masked figures climbing through. Heart pounding, Darren activated the apartment's enhanced security measures. Steel shutters slammed down over the windows and doors. He grabbed Phoebe and Zara, ushering them and Lyra into the panic room he had installed. The intruders, caught off guard by the security system, fled empty-handed. As the sound of sirens approached, Darren held the trembling sisters close, his mind racing with the implications of everything he had learned. The next morning, exhausted and on edge, Darren received an urgent message from Dr. Marcus Holt. The xenobiologist's excited voice filled the room as Darren played the holographic message. "Mr. Rice, I've made an incredible discovery," Holt said, his eyes wide with excitement. "Phoebe and Zara possess a unique physiological trait that could revolutionize our understanding of Missourian biology. This could lead to groundbreaking medical treatments for both species. We need to discuss this immediately." Darren stared at the fading hologram, the weight of this new information settling on his shoulders. The guardianship hearing was mere hours away, and now he held knowledge that could impact not just Phoebe and Zara's future, but potentially the future of human-Missourian relations. As he donned his formal attire for the hearing, Darren's mind whirled with everything he had uncovered. The conspiracy behind the embassy attack, the threats to his and the sisters' safety, and now this medical breakthrough. He had to decide how much to reveal, knowing that each piece of information could tip the scales of the hearing and interspecies diplomacy in unpredictable ways. Darren looked at Phoebe and Zara, their alien features now so familiar to him. Lyra stood nearby, ready to accompany them to the hearing. With a deep breath, Darren opened the door, stepping out to face a day that would determine not just their fate, but potentially the course of human-Missourian relations for years to come. Darren took a deep breath, adjusting his tie one last time as he stood before the imposing doors of the intergalactic embassy's courtroom. The weight of the past few weeks pressed down on him, but he steeled himself for the challenge ahead. Phoebe and Zara stood beside him, their scaled hands clasped tightly in his. "Are you ready?" Sarah Bryan asked, her voice steady and reassuring. Darren nodded, his mind focused. "As ready as I'll ever be." The door swung open, revealing a cavernous room unlike any courtroom Darren had ever seen. Holographic displays flickered around the circular chamber, accommodating both human and Missourian sensory needs. The committee members sat in a tiered semicircle, their diverse features a testament to the complexity of the case before them. As Darren took his seat, he caught sight of Dr. Marcus Holt fidgeting nervously in the witness area. The xenobiologist's discovery about Phoebe and Zara's unique physiology could be a game-changer, but Darren knew it also added another layer of complication to an already volatile situation. The hearing began with Zara presenting their case. She methodically laid out the evidence of Darren's efforts to provide a safe and nurturing environment for the Missouria sisters. Holographic projections displayed the modifications to his apartment, while Lyra's recorded testimony spoke to the cultural support the girls were receiving. When Dr. Holt took the stand, the room's atmosphere shifted palpably. He spoke with almost unchecked excitement about the sisters' unique traits. The potential for medical breakthroughs is staggering, Holt explained, his hands gesticulating wildly. Their cellular structure could hold the key to treating diseases that have plagued both our species for centuries. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Darren watched as the committee members leaned in, their interest clearly piqued. But before they could delve deeper into the implications, a stern voice cut through the chatter. "If I may address the committee," Agent Jack Reeves said, rising from his seat at the back of the room. The head of the committee, a statuesque Missourian with iridescent scales, nodded her assent. Reeves strode to the center of the room, his face grim. "Our investigation has uncovered disturbing evidence," he began, his voice low and measured. "The embassy attack was not a simple act of terrorism. We have reason to believe that both human and Missourian factions were involved." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Darren's heart raced as he realized the full scope of what Reeves was implying. The agent didn't reveal all the details, but his words painted a chilling picture of the dangers that still threatened Phoebe and Zara. As the committee grappled with this new information, the doors burst open once again. James Cooper rushed in, clutching a data pad. "I have evidence that cannot wait," he announced, his eyes locking with Darren's. The committee chair reluctantly allowed him to approach. James's fingers flew across the data pad, projecting financial records into the air. "These documents show substantial payments from global tech industries to known members of the Missouria Purist Collective," he explained, his voice tight with urgency. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Committee members argued loudly, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of human and Missouria languages. Darren's head spun as he tried to process the implications of this revelation. Suddenly, a booming voice cut through the din. "This is an outrage!" Senator Robert Hawkins stormed into the room, his face red with anger. "We cannot allow these aliens to remain on our planet," he shouted, pointing accusingly at Phoebe and Zara. "They must be deported immediately." The sisters shrank back, their scales shifting to a pale blue of fear. Darren instinctively moved to shield them, his protective instincts flaring. "Order! Order in this chamber!" the committee chair demanded, her voice amplified by the room's acoustics. "We will take a recess to consider this new information. Court will reconvene in 1 hour." As the room emptied, Darren's comm device buzzed insistently. His blood ran cold as he read Lyra's urgent message about the attempted abduction at his apartment. He showed the message to Zara, who nodded grimly. "We need to use this," she said quietly. "It proves the ongoing threat to the girls." When the hearing resumed, tension crackled in the air. Darren stood before the committee, his heart pounding but his voice steady. "Members of the committee," he began, "the events of the past hour have only reinforced what I've been trying to convey. Phoebe and Zara are at the center of a storm they never asked for. They need protection, stability, and care, things I've committed myself to providing." He recounted the latest attempt on the sisters' lives, watching as the committee members exchanged worried glances. "But this isn't just about their safety," Darren continued. "Dr. Holt's discovery shows that by protecting these children, we might be opening doors to advancements that could benefit both our species. We have a chance here, not just to do what's right for 2 innocent lives, but to forge a path towards greater understanding and cooperation between humans and Missourians." The committee deliberated for what felt like an eternity. Darren held his breath, acutely aware of Phoebe and Zara's anxious gazes fixed upon him. Finally, the chair spoke. "Mr. Rice, in light of the extraordinary circumstances surrounding this case, we have reached a decision," she announced. You are granted temporary guardianship of Phoebe and Zara for a probationary period of 6 months. Darren's knees nearly buckled with relief, but the chair wasn't finished. She outlined the conditions. The Joint Security Team, regular check-ins, and Darren's new role as a liaison in the ongoing investigation. As they left the courtroom, Darren felt the weight of his new responsibilities settling on his shoulders. The sisters clung to him, their relief palpable. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but looking at Phoebe and Zara, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Outside the embassy, reporters clamored for statements. Darren ushered the sisters towards a waiting transport where James, Dr. Holt, and Sarah were already gathered. As the vehicle lifted off, Darren gazed out at the sprawling cityscape, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. The conspiracy was larger and more complex than he had imagined, stretching across star systems and species lines. But now, with allies at his side and the weight of 2 innocent lives in his care, Darren was more determined than ever to uncover the truth and ensure a future where humans and Missourians could coexist in peace. As the transport wound its way through the city's skyways, Darren turned to his newfound team. "All right," he said, his voice firm with dedication. "Where do we start?" "Begin," Darren said, his voice firm with dedication. "We need to implement the committee's mandates and continue our investigation." Sarah nodded, pulling out her datapad. "I've already started drafting the necessary paperwork. We'll need to move quickly to secure the new safe house." As the transport wove through the city's skyways, Darren turned to Phoebe and Zara. "We're going to a new home," he explained gently. "It's going to be even safer than before, and Dr. Holt will be able to continue his research there." The sisters exchanged glances, their scales shimmering with a mix of anxiety and excitement. Zara spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. "Will we still be able to learn about Earth?" Darren smiled, reaching out to squeeze their hands. "Absolutely. This new place will have everything you need to continue your studies and more." The transport descended, landing on a secluded platform surrounded by lush greenery. As they disembarked, Darren's eyes widened at the sight of the safe house. It was a sleek, modern structure seamlessly integrated into the natural landscape. High-tech security measures were visible at every entrance, and the windows gleamed with a faint blue tint that suggested advanced shielding. Inside, the group was met by a team of human and Missourian scientists led by Dr. Holt. The xenobiologist was practically bouncing with excitement as he guided them through the facility. "We've set up a state-of-the-art research lab," Holt explained, gesturing to a room filled with unfamiliar equipment. "And the living quarters have been specially designed to accommodate Missourian physiology." Darren watched as Phoebe and Zara explored their new rooms, their scales shifting to a warm golden hue of contentment. The walls were lined with interactive displays, showing scenes from both Earth and Missouria, and the environmental controls allowed for precise adjustments to temperature and humidity. As the sisters settled in, Darren gathered with his team in the safe house's secure conference room. James Cooper's face appeared on a large screen, his expression grave. "I've uncovered some troubling connections," James reported. "Victor Hartley, Global Tech's CEO, has been in regular contact with several key figures in the Earth First movement. We're talking encrypted communications, secret meetings, the works." Agent Reeves leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "That lines up with what we found on our end. We've identified a Missourian diplomat, named Xerex, as a potential ringleader in the Purist Collective. He's been on Earth for months, and his movements coincide with several key events leading up to the embassy attack." Darren absorbed the information, his mind racing. "So we're looking at a coordinated effort from both sides. But why? What do they stand to gain from derailing human-Missourian relations?" Sarah's voice cut through the tension. "Follow the money. Global Tech's military contracts would skyrocket if conflict broke out. And the Purist Collective? They'd get exactly what they want: isolation and a return to Missourian purity." As the team delved deeper into their findings, alarms suddenly blared throughout the safe house. Darren's heart raced as he sprinted towards the sisters' quarters, Agent Reeves close behind. They found Phoebe and Zara huddled in a corner, their scales a pale blue of fear. The security team had already neutralized the threat, a group of would-be kidnappers lying unconscious on the floor. "It's okay," Darren soothed, kneeling beside the sisters. "You're safe. We stopped them." As the adrenaline subsided, Darren realized this attack was different. The unconscious assailants were a mix of humans and Missourians, their gear a hodgepodge of Earth and alien technology. Agent Reeves examined the captured intruders, his face grim. "This confirms it. We're dealing with a joint operation. These aren't just separate groups with aligned interests. They're working together." Over the next few days, as the security team interrogated the captured assailants, Dr. Holt made significant progress in his research. Darren watched from an observation room as the xenobiologist worked with Phoebe and Zara, his equipment humming softly. Suddenly, Holt's eyes widened. He rechecked his readings, then burst into a wide grin. "Eureka!" he shouted, startling the sisters. Darren rushed into the lab. "What is it?" Holt could barely contain his excitement. "Their cellular structure, it's incredible. We've identified a protein that could be the key to curing Nordine's disease. Do you understand what this means? A condition that's plagued both our species for centuries. We might have just found the cure." As news of the breakthrough leaked to the media, Darren noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The protests that had been raging across Earth cities began to lose steam. News broadcasts that had been dominated by Senator Hawkins's anti-alien rhetoric now featured scientists and medical experts discussing the potential benefits of human-Missourian cooperation. But even as public opinion shifted, the danger remained. Reports from Missouria painted a grim picture of a planet on the brink of civil war. Darren's Missourian contact spoke of violent clashes between those who supported closer ties with Earth and isolationist factions. As Darren worked with Zara to compile their findings into a comprehensive report for the Intergalactic Embassy, his comm device buzzed with an urgent message. His heart sank as he read the contents. "The Missourian government is requesting our help," he announced to the team. "They want us to come to Missouria to mediate peace talks between the warring factions." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Darren looked at Phoebe and Zara, then at the faces of his team. The decision before him was monumental. Stay on Earth and continue the investigation, or travel to Missouria and potentially risk everything. As Darren weighed his options, alarms blared once again. But this time, it wasn't an attack. On the main view screen, a news broadcast showed Missourian ships entering Earth's atmosphere, their intentions unknown. Unclear. Tension filled the room as everyone watched the approaching vessels with a mix of anticipation and dread. Darren's mind raced, weighing the potential consequences of his next move. The fate of Phoebe and Zara, the delicate balance of human-Missourian relations, and the looming threat of a larger conspiracy all hung in the balance. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "We're going to Missouria," Darren announced, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "It's time to address this conflict at its source." Sarah's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "The risks are considerable," Darren finished. "But so are the potential benefits. We need to seize this opportunity for peace." Over the next few hours, Darren coordinated with Earth and Missourian authorities to arrange for their journey. A state-of-the-art diplomatic vessel was quickly prepared, its sleek hull gleaming under the lights of the spaceport. Captain Marcus Steele, a veteran of numerous high-risk missions, greeted Darren and his team as they boarded. "Welcome aboard the Starbridge," Steele said, his weathered face creasing into a smile. "She's the best ship in the fleet, with defensive capabilities that would make a battlecruiser jealous." As the ship prepared for departure, Darren received an urgent transmission from James Cooper. The security expert's face was grim on the display. "Darren, we've uncovered a plot," James said, his voice low. "A joint operation between Earth First extremists and the Missouria Purist Collective. They're planning to assassinate you and the sisters during the peace talks." Darren's blood ran cold, but he kept his expression neutral for the sake of Phoebe and Zara, who were watching him with curious eyes. "Understood. We'll increase security measures. Keep me updated on any developments." As the star bridge lifted off, Darren watched Earth shrink beneath them. The vastness of space stretched out before them, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Phoebe and Zara pressed their faces against the viewports, their scales shimmering with excitement. "It's like swimming in the deep ocean," Zara whispered, her voice filled with awe. Their wonder was short-lived. Halfway through the journey, alarms blared through the ship. Captain Steele's voice came over the intercom, tense but controlled. "We've detected multiple system malfunctions. Possible sabotage. All personnel, initiate security protocol Omega." Darren ushered Phoebe and Zara to a secure room, his heart pounding. He joined Steele on the bridge, where the captain was coordinating a ship-wide security sweep. "There," one of the officers called out, pointing to a redoubt. "Unauthorized access in the engineering section." Security teams converged on the location, cornering a young man in a maintenance uniform. The saboteur fought viciously, but was quickly subdued. As he was led away in restraints, Darren recognized the hatred burning in his eyes, the same look he'd seen in the faces of Earth First protesters. "He managed to transmit our flight plan before we caught him," Steele reported grimly. "We should expect company." As if on cue, the ship's sensors lit up. Multiple vessels were approaching rapidly, their intentions clear. Steele's hands flew over the controls, initiating evasive maneuvers. The star bridge responded beautifully, twisting and turning through space with impossible grace. Darren held on to his seat as the ship lurched. Through the view screen, he could see the attacking ships, a mix of human and Missouria designs, united in their pursuit. Weapons fire flashed past them, the starbridge's shields flaring with each near miss. "We can't outrun them forever," Steele growled. "We need to find a way to dash." He was cut off by a gasp from Zara. The young Missourian's eyes had gone wide, her scales pulsing with an otherworldly light. "I can see them," she whispered. "The patterns. The weaknesses in their shields." Darren and Steele exchanged shocked looks. Without hesitation, the captain said, "Tell me everything you see, Zara." Guided by Zara's newfound ability, Steele executed a series of precise maneuvers. The starbridge's weapons found their marks with unerring accuracy, disabling the pursuing ships without destroying them. As the last attacker fell back, a new fleet appeared on their sensors. Darren tensed, preparing for another fight, but Steele's face broke into a relieved grin. "Missouria peacekeepers," he explained. "Looks like we've got an escort for the rest of our journey." As they approached Missouria, Darren received a transmission from Ambassador Lyra, her scaled face filling the view screen. "Mr. Rice," she said, her voice warm but tinged with concern. "We've been following your progress. Your arrival has caused quite a stir on Missouria. I hope you're prepared for what awaits you here." Darren looked at Phoebe and Zara, then at the determined faces of his team. "We're ready, Ambassador. It's time to build a bridge between our worlds." The star bridge descended through Missouria's atmosphere, the alien landscape unfolding beneath them. As they touched down in the capital city, Darren could see crowds gathered, some cheering, others protesting. The sisters pressed close to him, their scales flickering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Ambassador Lyra waited at the bottom of the ramp, flanked by a delegation of Missourian officials. Behind them, the city stretched out in a dizzying array of organic architecture and shimmering colors. Darren took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. He had come to alien soil, carrying the hopes of two worlds. As he prepared to take his first step onto Missouриan ground, he knew that every move he made from this point on would shape the future of human-Missouриan relations. With Phoebe and Zara at his side, Darren descended the ramp, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in this strange new world. As Darren's foot touched the alien soil, he felt a slight vibration through his boot. The gravity was different here, just a bit lighter than Earth's, giving each step a subtle bounce. Ambassador Lyra stepped forward, her scales shimmering in the light of Missouria's twin suns. "Welcome to Zyrex, Mr. Rice," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality that seemed to resonate in the air. "I trust your journey was eventful?" Darren nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd beyond the diplomatic delegation. "You could say that, Ambassador. We're grateful for the escort your peacekeepers provided." As they spoke, a team of Missouриan technicians approached, carrying what looked like sleek, form-fitting suits. "Our atmosphere is not entirely compatible with human physiology," Lyra explained. "These enviro suits will allow you to move freely in our city without discomfort." Darren and his human team quickly donned the suits, marveling at how they seemed to mold perfectly to their bodies. The material was unlike anything Darren had ever felt, cool to the touch yet responsive, almost alive. Zyrex unfolded before them as they moved from the spaceport into the heart of the city. Towering crystal spires stretched towards the sky, their surfaces refracting light in dazzling patterns. Floating platforms drifted between the buildings, carrying Missouриans going about their daily lives. The entire city seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Phoebe and Zara pressed close to Darren, their scales flickering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "It's so different," Phoebe whispered, her eyes wide as she took in the sights of her homeworld for the first time in years. Ambassador Lyra led them to a secure compound that would serve as their base of operations. The structure was a marvel of Missouриan architecture, its walls seeming to shift and breathe. "We've adapted this facility to accommodate both human and Missouриan needs," Lyra explained. "You'll find all the necessary amenities here." As they settled in, Darren received a briefing on the upcoming peace talks. The Grand Assembly Hall, where the negotiations would take place, was a massive structure at the heart of Zyrex. It was designed to house representatives from various Missouриan factions, some of whom were deeply skeptical of Earth's intentions. The following day, Darren stood before the assembled Missouриan representatives in the Grand Assembly Hall. The chamber was a marvel of organic architecture, its high ceiling adorned with bioluminescent patterns that shifted and swirled. Phoebe and Zara stood beside him, their presence a powerful symbol of the potential for cooperation between their species. "Esteemed representatives of Missouria," Darren began, his voice carrying through the hall thanks to some unseen amplification technology. "I come before you today not just as an envoy of Earth, but as someone who has seen firsthand the potential of our two species working together." As Darren spoke about recent events and the opportunities for collaboration, he could see the gathered Missouриans reacting. Some nodded in agreement, while others remained stoic, their scaled features unreadable. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from one side of the chamber. A tall, imposing Missouриan with deep blue scales rose to his feet, his voice booming across the hall. "This is nothing but human manipulation," he shouted, his eyes blazing with intensity. Ambassador Lyra leaned close to Darren. "Commander Krax," she whispered, "leader of the isolationist faction. Be careful. He's as cunning as he is passionate." Krax strode to the center of the chamber, his presence commanding attention. "Look at how they parade these orphaned children before us," he said, gesturing towards Phoebe and Zara, "using them as political pawns to tug at our heartstrings. But make no mistake, their true intention is to weaken Missouria, to make us dependent on human charity." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Darren could see some representatives nodding in agreement with Krax's words. The delicate balance he had been trying to achieve was suddenly tipping away from him. Before Darren could respond, Zara stepped forward. Her scales were pulsing with a soft, calming light. "Commander Krax," she said, her young voice steady and clear. "You speak of manipulation, but you haven't asked us what we want. We are not pawns. We are Missourians who have seen the best of both worlds. And we believe that together, we can achieve greatness." A hush fell over the assembly. Even Krax seemed taken aback by the young Missourian's words. Darren felt a surge of pride, mixed with a twinge of concern. He knew that Zara's intervention, while powerful, had also painted a target on her back for those who opposed cooperation. As the session adjourned for the day, Darren received an urgent message from Dr. Holt. The xenobiologist had made a breakthrough in his research on Phoebe and Zara's unique physiology. Darren hurried back to the compound, his mind racing with the possibilities. In the makeshift lab, Holt's eyes were alight with excitement. "Darren, you won't believe what I've found," he said, gesturing to a holographic display of complex molecular structures. The girl's genetic makeup contains elements that could potentially neutralize the fringe virus. Darren's breath caught in his throat. The fringe virus had been devastating colonies on the outskirts of both human and Missourian space for years. A cure could save millions of lives and change the course of the peace talks. As Darren absorbed this information, Captain Steele burst into the lab, his face grim. "We've got a problem," he said, his voice low and urgent. "My team has uncovered a plot to assassinate you and the sisters. It's a joint operation between Earth First and the Purist Collective." Darren's mind raced, trying to process the rapid-fire developments. The potential for a medical breakthrough, the looming threat of assassination. The stakes of their mission had just risen exponentially. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the compound. On a nearby screen, Darren saw a sea of protesters gathering outside the Grand Assembly Hall. Some carried signs supporting peace, while others demanded isolation and an end to human interference. In the midst of the chaos, Darren's comm device buzzed with an incoming transmission from Ambassador Lyra. Her usually composed features were etched with concern. "Mr. Rice," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I received intelligence that changes everything. The embassy attack on Earth, it wasn't what we thought. There's a third party involved, manipulating both sides. Trust no one." As the transmission ended, Darren looked at the faces of his team, at Phoebe and Zara, and at the crowd gathering outside. He realized that every decision he made from this moment on could tip the balance between peace and war, between a future of cooperation and one of isolation. The fate of two worlds now rested on his shoulders, and the true challenge was only beginning. The true challenge was only just unfolding before Darren's eyes as he processed Ambassador Lyra's cryptic warning. With tension thick in the air, Darren knew he had to act quickly. He turned to his team, his voice low but urgent. "We need to move forward with the truth-telling ritual. It's our best chance to clear the air and expose whatever's really going on here." Captain Steele nodded grimly. "I'll coordinate security. We can't take any chances with this third party lurking in the shadows." As preparations for the ritual began, Darren felt a knot forming in his stomach. The Missourian truth-telling was no simple polygraph test. It was a deep, invasive process that would lay bare his every thought and memory. The secure chamber within the Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with activity as human and Missourian security forces took their positions. Darren's eyes swept across the room, taking in the mix of scaled and human faces, all taut with anticipation. A slender Missourian with iridescent silver scales approached, her movements fluid and purposeful. "I am Zelna," she introduced herself, her voice carrying a hint of warmth despite the gravity of the situation. "I will conduct the mind link for the ritual." Darren nodded, trying to mask his apprehension. "I'm ready," he said, more confidently than he felt. He lowered himself into the specially designed chair, its surface cool against his skin. As sensors attached themselves to his temples and wrists, Darren couldn't help but feel like a specimen under examination. Zelna placed her hands on either side of Darren's head, her touch feather-light. "Open your mind," she instructed softly. "Do not resist." The moment the mind link initiated, Darren's world exploded into a kaleidoscope of sensation. It felt as if every nerve in his body was firing at once, his thoughts and memories cascading through his consciousness in a dizzying rush. He gritted his teeth against the discomfort, forcing himself to remain still as Zelna navigated through the landscape of his mind. Darren's genuine intentions regarding Phoebe and Zara floated to the surface, his fierce desire to protect them and foster peace between their species laid bare for all to see. But then, something unexpected happened. The mind link delved deeper, brushing against memories Darren had long buried. Suddenly, he was back on the fringe colony of New Horizon, a much younger man watching helplessly as the deadly virus ravaged his community. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the observers witnessed Darren's personal connection to the affected colonies. The raw emotion of those suppressed memories, the fear, the loss, the drive to prevent such suffering in the future, resonated strongly with the Missouria representatives. As the ritual concluded, Darren slumped in the chair, physically and emotionally drained. The chamber had fallen into a contemplative silence, the mood shifting palpably. Before anyone could speak, alarms blared throughout the assembly hall, shattering the moment. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the comm system. "Multiple breaches detected. All personnel, prepare for imminent threat." Darren struggled to his feet, his mind still reeling from the ritual. Through the haze, he registered the sound of weapons fire and shouts echoing from beyond the chamber. Ambassador Lyra rushed to Darren's side, her scales flickering with urgency. "We must secure the research and protect Phoebe and Zara," she insisted. "They are the key to everything." As they moved to exit the chamber, chaos erupted around them. Figures in advanced cloaking technology materialized, their weapons trained on the gathered dignitaries. Darren recognized the mixed group of human and Missouria extremists, the Joint Earth First and Purist collective strike force they'd been warned about. In the confusion, Darren caught sight of Commander Crack slipping away, a determined glint in his eyes. Lyra noticed, too, her expression hardening. "He's making his move," she hissed. "I need to stop him from accessing our defense systems." Darren nodded, his diplomatic instincts kicking in despite the crisis. "Go. I'll coordinate with Captain Steele and get to the girls." As Lyra rushed off, Darren tapped into the comm system. "Steele, what's your status?" The captain's voice came back, punctuated by the sound of weapon fire. "Holding the lab, but barely. These bastards are using tech I've never seen before. We need backup." Darren's mind raced, assessing their options. He needed to reach the lab, protect Phoebe and Zara, and somehow unite the fractured human and Missouria security forces against this common threat. As he navigated the chaos-filled corridors of the assembly hall, Darren could hear the sounds of battle intensifying. He knew that somewhere in this maze, the fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and it was up to him to tip the scales in favor of peace. Peace and unity. With a deep breath, he steeled himself and plunged into the fray. The corridors of the assembly hall had become a battleground, with security forces engaged in fierce combat against the extremists. Darren ducked and weaved through the chaos, his heart pounding as he made his way towards the lab where Phoebe and Zara were being kept. As he rounded a corner, he came face to face with a masked attacker. Without hesitation, Darren launched himself forward, tackling the assailant to the ground. They grappled fiercely, but Darren's willpower won out. He managed to disarm his opponent and knock him unconscious with a well-placed strike. Breathing heavily, Darren picked up the fallen weapon and continued his advance. He could hear the sounds of intense fighting coming from the direction of the lab. As he approached, he saw Captain Steele and his team holding their position against a relentless assault. "Steele!" Darren called out as he joined them. "What's the situation?" The captain glanced at him, his face grim. "We're outnumbered but holding. The girls are safe inside for now, but we can't keep this up forever." Suddenly, a familiar voice crackled over the comm system. It was Ambassador Lyra. "Darren, Captain Steele, I've managed to rally additional forces. They're on their way to your position now." As if on cue, a group of Missouria security forces rounded the corner, their scales gleaming as they joined the fray. The tide of battle began to turn as the human and Missouria defenders fought side by side, pushing back against the extremists. In the midst of the fighting, Darren noticed something strange. Some of the attackers seemed to be hesitating, looking at each other with uncertainty. He realized that the unity displayed by the human and Missouria forces was having an effect on their perseverance. Taking advantage of the moment, Darren stepped forward, his voice ringing out above the din of battle. "Look around you," he shouted. "Is this what you want? Humans and Missouria standing together, protecting each other. This is the future we can build together." His words seemed to strike a chord. Several of the attackers lowered their weapons, while others turned and fled. The remaining extremists, now vastly outnumbered, were quickly subdued. As the dust settled, Darren rushed into the lab to check on Phoebe and Zara. The sisters were huddled together, visibly shaken but unharmed. He embraced them tightly, relief washing over him. "It's over," he assured them. "You're safe now." In the days that followed, the aftermath of the failed attack brought new challenges and opportunities. Captain Steele led a thorough sweep of Zyrex, rooting out remaining extremist cells. Their efforts uncovered a hidden base used by the Earth First and Purist Collective Strike Force, providing valuable intelligence on their wider network. As Darren walked through the streets of Zyrex with Ambassador Lyra, he could sense a change in the air. The joint human-Missouria security forces worked together seamlessly, their cooperation a visible symbol of unity. "We need to capitalize on this momentum," Lyra said, her scales shimmering with intensity. "I'm proposing the formation of an interspecies cooperation council. We need to oversee the joint research initiative for the virus cure and address other collaborative efforts." Darren nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "That's an excellent idea. We need to institutionalize this cooperation before old prejudices can resurface." As they discussed the details, Lyra turned to him with a smile. "I'd like you to serve as a key advisor to the Council, Darren. Your unique position as guardian of Phoebe and Zara, combined with your experiences, makes you invaluable to this process." Before Darren could respond, his comm device buzzed. It was Dr. Holt, his voice brimming with excitement. "Darren, we've had a breakthrough. I need you and the girls at the lab immediately." When they arrived at the research facility, Darren was struck by the transformation. Human and Missouria scientists worked side by side, their combined expertise evident in the advanced equipment and holographic displays surrounding them. Dr. Holt greeted them, his eyes alight with enthusiasm. "We've made significant progress in understanding the girl's unique physiology," he explained, gesturing to a complex molecular model floating in the air. "This could be the key to neutralizing the fringe virus." As the doctor delved into the technical details, Darren noticed Zara's scales pulsing with a soft light. The young Missouria stepped forward, her gaze fixed on one of the experimental treatments. "There's something different about that one," she said, pointing to a vial of iridescent liquid. Dr. Holt looked at her in surprise. "How did you—" He quickly ran a series of tests on the sample. "Incredible. Zara's right. This variation shows significantly higher efficacy than the others." Darren watched in amazement as Zara's energy-sensing abilities accelerated the research process. Meanwhile, Phoebe had gravitated towards one of the Missouria computers, her fingers flying over the alien interface with surprising ease. "I've optimized the simulation parameters," she announced, drawing astonished looks from the nearby scientists. "It should reduce processing time by 37%. As Darren observed the sisters' contributions, he felt a surge of pride mixed with a twinge of concern. Their unique abilities were proving invaluable, but he worried about the pressure this might place on them. His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Captain Steele. The security officer's face was grim as he approached Darren. "We've got a situation," Steele said in a low voice. "Commander Krax was just targeted by an assassination attempt. We managed to thwart it, but it's clear the extremists aren't done yet." Darren's mind raced, processing the implications. The failed attack on Krax could further cement the growing trust between humans and Missourians, but it also meant the threat was nowhere near the end. As he pondered their next move, Darren felt a familiar pressure building in his head. Suddenly, he was back on New Horizon, the screams of the infected echoing in his ears. The vivid flashback left him gasping, but as the vision faded, he realized it had provided a crucial insight. "Dr. Holt," he called out, his voice urgent. "I remember something about the early stages of the outbreak. There was a pattern to how it spread, something we overlooked at the time." As Darren shared his recollection, he saw the wheels turning in the scientist's mind. This new information could be the missing piece they needed to refine their approach to the cure. With renewed commitment, the research team dove back into their work. Darren watched as human and Missourian scientists collaborated seamlessly, their shared purpose transcending any lingering differences. As night fell over Zyrex, Darren stood at the window of the research facility, gazing out at the city's bioluminescent glow. The events of the past few days had set in motion changes that would reshape the relationship between humans and Missourians for generations to come. But even as hope bloomed, new challenges loomed on the horizon. The virus was showing signs of spreading beyond the fringe colonies, and whispers of a deeper conspiracy involving corporate entities on both Earth and Missouria had reached Ambassador Lyra's ears. Darren knew that the road ahead would be fraught with difficulties. Yet as he watched Phoebe and Zara working alongside the scientists, their unique abilities bridging the gap between human and Missourian knowledge, he felt a spark of optimism. The Interspecies Cooperation Council was set to convene in the morning, marking the beginning of a new era. As Darren prepared himself for the challenges ahead, he couldn't help but wonder what other secrets and obstacles lay in wait, ready to test the fragile alliance they had forged. Forge threatened to unravel at any moment. As Darren pondered the challenges ahead, Dr. Holt burst into the room, his face etched with concern. "We have a problem," he announced, his voice tight with urgency. Darren turned from the window, instantly alert. "What is it?" Dr. Holt held up a holographic display, its swirling patterns depicting complex molecular structures. The key component in Phoebe and Zara's physiology, the one crucial for neutralizing the virus, it's degrading rapidly. The news hit Darren like a physical blow. He glanced at the sisters, who were still engrossed in their work with the research team. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe a week at most," Dr. Holt replied, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "We need to act fast if we want to preserve their unique biological properties." Darren's mind raced, weighing the options and potential consequences. After a moment of tense silence, he nodded grimly. "Do what you have to do, Doctor. We'll need to run a series of carefully monitored medical procedures to collect and preserve samples." As the medical team prepared for the procedures, Darren pulled Phoebe and Zara aside, explaining the situation in gentle terms. The sisters exchanged worried glances but nodded bravely, understanding the importance of their role. Over the next few days, Darren watched with a mixture of pride and concern as Phoebe and Zara underwent a battery of tests and sample collections. The procedures, while necessary, clearly took a toll on the young Missourian sisters. Their usual vibrant energy dimmed, replaced by fatigue and discomfort. Darren found himself grappling with the ethical implications of their involvement. He paced the corridors of the research facility, his conscience wrestling with the knowledge that their unique physiology might be the key to saving millions of lives. As if the situation wasn't tense enough, Captain Steele approached Darren with grim news. "We've just received an urgent communication from Earth," he reported, his face a mask of concern. "The virus has begun spreading in major human population centers. Governments are demanding immediate action." Darren's heart sank. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough to cause widespread panic," Steele replied. "I'm increasing security measures around the facility. We can't risk any attempts to steal or sabotage our work." As they discussed the security arrangements, Dr. Elias Vance, the human scientist from the fringe colonies, rushed up to them. His eyes were wide with a mixture of excitement and fear. "I've made a breakthrough in understanding the virus's mutation patterns," he announced breathlessly. Darren and Steele exchanged glances. "What have you found?" Darren asked. Dr. Vance lowered his voice, glancing around nervously. "The pattern suggests that the virus may have been artificially created and released. This wasn't a natural outbreak." The revelation sent a chill down Darren's spine. It confirmed Ambassador Lyra's earlier suspicions of a deeper conspiracy. As the implications sank in, alarms blared throughout the facility. "Security breach in Sector 7. A voice announced over the intercom. Captain Steele immediately sprang into action, barking orders into his communicator as he rushed towards the source of the disturbance. Darren hurried after him, his heart pounding. They arrived at the scene to find a group of intruders engaged in a firefight with security forces. Darren recognized their uniforms, Earth First extremists. As Steele coordinated the defense, Darren's communicator buzzed. It was a message from James Cooper, his old friend and fellow diplomat on Earth. The transmission was garbled and filled with static, but Darren could make out a few crucial words. "Earth First. Planning to kidnap. Phoebe and Zara. Be careful." The message cut off abruptly, leaving Darren with a sense of dread. He turned to Steele, who had just finished subduing the last of the intruders. "We need to move Phoebe and Zara to a secure location immediately," Darren insisted. "They're in danger." As they rushed to implement new security measures, Dr. Holt approached with news of his own. "We're attempting an experimental procedure to stabilize the degrading component in the sister's physiology," he explained. "It involves synthesizing a hybrid of human and Missouria DNA." Darren nodded, his pupils dilating from the rapid-fire developments. "Do it, but be careful. The risk to Phoebe and Zara." "I understand," Dr. Holt assured him. "We'll take every precaution." As the research team prepared for the risky procedure, Darren received word that a delegation of high-ranking Earth officials had just arrived on Missouria. Among them was General Jonathan Hayes, a hardline military leader known for his skepticism of alien cooperation. Darren knew that Hayes' presence would only complicate matters further. He steeled himself for the diplomatic challenges ahead, all while keeping a watchful eye on Phoebe and Zara's safety. With threats closing in from all sides and time running out to find a cure, Darren realized that the fragile alliance between humans and Missourians was about to face its greatest test yet. As he prepared to meet with the Earth delegation, he couldn't shake the feeling that every decision he made from this point on could tip the balance between salvation and catastrophe for both species. Species for both human and Missourian. As Darren grappled with the weight of this responsibility, he found himself standing before the Interspecies Cooperation Council, presenting his proposal for a joint human-Missourian expedition to the fringe colonies. The council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from both species debated the merits and risks of such a mission. Darren stood firm, his voice steady as he outlined the potential benefits of investigating the virus's origin firsthand. "We cannot afford to ignore any avenue that might lead us to a cure," he argued, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. "This expedition could provide crucial insights into the nature of the virus and its spread." After hours of intense discussion, the council reached a decision. By a narrow margin, Darren's proposal was approved. He felt a mix of relief and apprehension wash over him as the council appointed him to lead the mission. With the green light given, preparations for the expedition began immediately. Darren worked tirelessly to assemble a team of specialists, carefully selecting individuals who could contribute unique skills to the mission. Dr. Elias Vance, the human scientist who had made the breakthrough regarding the virus's artificial origins, was among the first to join. His expertise would be invaluable in unraveling the mysteries they might encounter on the fringe colonies. Zelna, the Missouria telepath who had conducted Darren's truth-telling ritual, also agreed to participate. Her abilities could prove crucial in navigating the complex social and political landscape they were likely to encounter. Captain Marcus Steele was assigned to oversee security for the mission. Darren watched as Steele meticulously selected a team of both human and Missourian personnel, emphasizing the need for seamless cooperation between the two species. As the expedition team took shape, Dr. Marcus Holt approached Darren with a controversial proposal. The scientist's face was etched with a mix of excitement and concern as he explained his idea. "I believe we should include Phoebe and Zara in the expedition," Holt said, his eyes gleaming with the fervor of scientific discovery. Their unique physiology could be crucial for on-site analysis and potential breakthroughs. Darren frowned, considering the implications. "It's risky, Doctor. They've already been through so much, and we can't guarantee their safety on the fringe colonies." Before they could discuss further, James Cooper burst into the room, his clothes disheveled and a wild look in his eyes. "Darren, we need to talk. Now." Cooper quickly relayed the harrowing tale of his narrow escape from Earth first extremists and the critical intelligence he had uncovered. The revelation of Victor Hargrove's involvement and the planned kidnapping attempt on Phoebe and Zara sent shockwaves through the expedition team. Darren and Captain Steele huddled together, rapidly modifying their mission parameters to include tracking down Hargrove. The former Global Tech Industries executive's connection to early virus research added a new layer of urgency to their quest. As final preparations were made, Dr. Holt's team achieved a breakthrough in stabilizing the component derived from Phoebe and Zara's physiology. The news spread quickly, raising hopes for a potential cure. The Interspecies Cooperation Council, under mounting pressure, made the difficult decision to begin limited production of the experimental treatment. Darren watched as both human and Missourian officials engaged in heated debates over distribution priorities. Amidst a frenzy of activity, General Jonathan Hayes arrived on Missouria, his presence adding another layer of complexity to the mission. The general's insistence on sending a separate human military contingent to the fringe colonies was met with reluctance, but ultimately granted with strict conditions. Commander Krax, seeking redemption, volunteered to lead a Missourian support fleet. Darren found himself in the delicate position of managing the commander's ambitions while staying focused on the primary objectives of the expedition. As the departure date approached, the Unity Initiative organized a massive send-off ceremony. Darren stood on the platform, gazing out at the sea of faces, human and Missourian alike, gathered to show their support. The sight filled him with a mix of hope and trepidation. On the eve of their departure, Darren received an encrypted message that sent his mind blown. The partial data on early virus experiments and the hint of a secure facility on a remote fringe colony provided a tantalizing lead, but also suggested that powerful forces might be working against them. As Darren boarded the expedition's flagship, a marvel of human and Missourian engineering, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The fate of two species, the lives of Phoebe and Zara, and the future of interspecies cooperation all hinged on the success of this mission. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Darren watched through the viewport as Missouria grew smaller. As they prepared to enter hyperdrive, he turned to address his diverse crew, their faces a mix of tenacity and apprehension. "We embark on this journey not just as humans or Missourians, but as united explorers seeking truth and salvation for both our peoples," Darren began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "The challenges ahead are formidable, but together we stand a chance of overcoming them." With a final nod to his team, Darren gave the order to engage hyperdrive. The stars outside the viewport stretched into streaks of light as the ship hurtled towards the fringe colonies, carrying with it the hopes of two worlds and the key to unraveling a deadly mystery. Conspiracy and the key to unraveling a deadly mystery. The Unity emerged from hyperdrive with a slight shudder, its crew momentarily disoriented as the swirling colors of faster-than-light travel gave way to the stark blackness of normal space. Darren steadied himself against a nearby console, his eyes quickly adjusting to the view of the fringe colonies spread out before them. "We've arrived at the edge of the colonial system," Captain Steele announced, his voice calm but tinged with tension. "Long-range scanners are detecting unusual energy signatures from the surface of the nearest planet." Dr. Elias Vance hurried to analyze the data streaming across his terminal. His eyes widened as he processed the information. These signatures, they're consistent with advanced research facilities. It's possible they're linked to the virus's origin. Darren nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "All right, let's not waste any time. Captain Steele, establish orbit around that planet. We'll prepare a landing party to investigate." As the Unity and its support vessels maneuvered into position, Darren couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and dread. They were on the precipice of uncovering crucial information, but the dangers they faced were very real. The shuttle bay bustled with activity as the landing party prepared for descent. Darren double-checked his protective suit, ensuring every seal was secure. Beside him, Dr. Vance meticulously calibrated a handheld scanner, while Zelna stood perfectly still, her eyes closed in quiet meditation. "Remember," Darren addressed a mixed team of humans and Missourians, "we don't know what we're walking into down there. Stay alert and watch each other's backs." As the shuttles launched from the Unity, Captain Steele's voice crackled over the comms. "Be advised, the human military contingent led by General Hayes has just arrived in system. They're maintaining their agreed-upon distance, but I'll be keeping a close eye on them." Darren acknowledged the update, his eyes sharpening slightly. Hayes' presence added an unwelcome complication to an already precarious situation. The descent through the planet's atmosphere was turbulent, but the skilled pilots managed to land the shuttles safely near the coordinates of the energy signatures. As the landing party disembarked, they found themselves facing an abandoned research outpost, its exterior bearing the unmistakable insignia of global tech industries. "Looks like they left in a hurry," Dr. Vance observed, gesturing to the still-active equipment visible through the facility's windows. The team moved cautiously through the deserted corridors, the eerie silence broken only by the hum of machinery and the occasional beep from their scanners. Partially erased data files hinted at the valuable information that might still be hidden within the complex. Suddenly, Zara's voice cut through the tense atmosphere. "I'm sensing something. Below us." A faint energy signal. Following her lead, the security team discovered a hidden entrance to an underground level. As they descended into the vast laboratory complex beneath the surface, the true scale of the operation became apparent. Dr. Vance gasped as he took in the rows of sophisticated equipment. This is far beyond anything I expected. Look at these gene sequencers, the hybrid cell cultures. They were experimenting with combined human and Missourian physiology. Darren felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the implications. Just like Phoebe and Zara. As the team spread out to investigate, Dr. Vance made his way to the central computer terminal. His fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing security protocols and delving into the facility's mainframe. "I've found something," he called out, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "Partial data on early virus development. Darren, you need to see this." Darren hurried over, his eyes scanning the information displayed on the screen. The evidence was clear. The virus had been engineered as a bioweapon, specifically targeting genetic markers common to both humans and Missourians. "This confirms it," Darren said grimly. "A coordinated conspiracy involving factions from both our species. But why? What could they possibly hope to gain from this?" Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red warning lights bathed the laboratory in an ominous glow as blast doors slammed shut, sealing them inside. "It's some kind of automated defense system," one of the security officers shouted over the noise. "We must have triggered a fail-safe protocol." Darren's mind raced as he assessed their options. They needed to escape with the vital data they'd uncovered, but the facility itself seemed determined to eliminate all evidence and witnesses. "Phoebe," he called out, "can you interface with the Missouria-based technology here? We need to override these security measures." As Phoebe stepped forward, her hands hovering over a nearby control panel, Darren's comm unit crackled to life. Captain Steele's voice came through, tight with urgency. "Darren, we've got a situation up here. An Earth-first vessel just entered the system, trying to mask its approach. Commander Krax has engaged them, but things are getting heated. And General Hayes, he's breaking protocol, moving his ships closer to the planet. Claims he needs to extract the human members of the expedition." Darren closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the crisis bearing down on him. They were trapped underground with crucial information about the virus's origins. Above them, a space battle was unfolding that threatened to spark an interspecies conflict and derail their entire mission. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the difficult decisions ahead. They had come too far to fail now. With drive in his eyes, Darren turned to his team, ready to lead them through the gauntlet of challenges that stood between them and the truth they sought. "All right, listen up," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Dr. Vance, focus on extracting every bit of data related to the virus. Zelna, I need you to establish a telepathic link with Commander Krax. We have to prevent this situation from escalating into all-out war." As the team sprang into action, Darren knew that their next moves would be crucial. The fate of two species hung in the balance, and the answers they sought lay hidden within this deadly labyrinth of a facility. With time running out and dangers closing in from all sides, Darren prepared himself for the fight of his life, a fight not just for survival, but for the future of human-Missourian relations and the key to stopping a devastating plague. Pandemic. The facility's alarms continued to blare as Darren and his team worked frantically to escape the lockdown protocols. "I've got it!" Phoebe exclaimed, her hands moving in a blur over the control panel. The blast doors slowly began to retract, revealing a path to freedom. "Everyone move," Darren ordered, ushering his team towards the exit. "Dr. Vance, did you secure all the data?" The scientist nodded, clutching a portable drive to his chest. "Everything I could download in the time we had." As they raced through the corridors, Darren's comm unit crackled again. "Darren, this is Captain Steele. The situation up here is deteriorating rapidly. We need you back on the Unity immediately." "Understood, Captain. We're on our way." The team emerged from the facility, sprinting towards their shuttles. As they lifted off, Darren caught a glimpse of the research outpost growing smaller beneath them, its secrets still largely intact despite their best efforts. Once aboard the Unity, Darren wasted no time in assessing the situation. The bridge was a flurry of activity as crew members monitored the unfolding space battle. "Report," Darren demanded, his eyes scanning the tactical displays. Captain Steele turned to face him, his expression grim. "The Earth-first vessel has engaged Commander Krax's fleet. General Hayes is moving into position, claiming he's providing support, but his intentions are unclear." Darren's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't afford to get bogged down in a prolonged conflict, not when they had vital information about the virus's origins to analyze. "Captain, prepare for immediate departure," Darren ordered. "Set course for the second fringe colony, Nexus 7. Steele raised an eyebrow. Nexus 7? What's there? According to the intel we uncovered, it might be Victor Hargrove's hiding place. We need to move quickly before he catches wind of our discovery. As the Unity broke orbit, leaving the battle behind, Darren gathered his core team for a briefing. Dr. Vance presented his preliminary findings from the data they had recovered, confirming the virus's engineered nature and its specific targeting of human and Missourian genetic markers. "This is beyond anything we imagined," Dr. Vance explained, his voice a mix of awe and horror. "The level of sophistication in this bioweapon. It's clear that whoever developed it had access to advanced knowledge of both human and Missourian physiology." Darren nodded grimly. "And now we know Hargrove is involved. We need to find him and put an end to this before it's too late." The journey to Nexus 7 was tense, with the crew working around the clock to prepare for their next move. As they approached the planet, long-range scanners detected multiple structures on the surface, matching the architectural style of Global Tech Industries facilities. Captain Steele, collaborating with his mixed human-Missourian security team, devised a stealth insertion plan. They modified a small shuttle with experimental cloaking technology developed by Dr. Marcus Holt, allowing them to approach the planet's surface undetected. Darren selected a small team for the covert mission, including himself, Dr. Vance, Zelna, and a handful of specially trained operatives. As they boarded the modified shuttle, Darren turned to address the remaining crew. "While we're groundside, maintain high orbit and stay alert. Commander Cracks will position his fleet in a defensive formation around the Unity. Captain Steele, keep an eye on General Hayes. His move to the far side of Nexus 7 might be providing coverage, but we can't rule out other motives." The shell detached from the Unity, its cloaking technology rendering it invisible to conventional sensors. As they descended through Nexus 7's atmosphere, the pilot encountered unexpected turbulence. "Sir, the planet's magnetic field is interfering with our navigation systems," the pilot reported, his hands gripping the controls tightly. Switching to manual. The descent slowed, increasing their risk of detection. Darren felt the tension in the cabin rise as they approached the surface, the sprawling compound coming into view. "Look at the size of that place," Dr. Vance whispered, peering through a viewport. "Hargrove's been busy." As they touched down in a concealed location near the compound's perimeter, Darren activated his comm link. "Zara, what can you sense?" There was a moment of silence before Zara's voice came through. "I'm detecting multiple energy sources, but there's a weak point in the perimeter defenses to the northwest." "Good work," Darren replied. "Phoebe, think you can disable a section of the energy barrier?" "I'll do my best," Phoebe answered, her voice determined. The team moved silently towards the identified weak point. Advanced security drones patrolled the area, their sensors sweeping for any signs of intruders. As they reached the energy barrier, Phoebe closed her eyes, extending her hands towards the shimmering field. Moments later, a section of the barrier flickered and disappeared. "Now!" Darren whispered urgently, and the team slipped through the opening. Once inside the compound, Darren split the team into two groups. "Dr. Vance, take your team and locate any research data on the virus. Zelna, you're with me. We're heading for the Central Command Center to find Hargrove." As they separated, Darren couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. The facility's corridors were a maze of high-tech equipment and ominous laboratories, each step bringing them closer to the truth behind the deadly virus that threatened both their species. With Zelna at his side, Darren moved deeper into the heart of the compound, unaware of the battle brewing in orbit above them or the startling discoveries that awaited in the depths of Hargrove's hidden base. The next few hours would test the limits of their skills, their alliance, and their commitment to uncover the truth, whatever it takes. The tension within the compound was palpable as Darren and Zelna approached the Central Command Center. Suddenly, Alarms blared throughout the facility, red lights flashing in warning. "We've been detected," Darren hissed, drawing his weapon. Before they could react further, a hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a squad of armed guards. In the ensuing firefight, Darren and Zelna found themselves outgunned and outnumbered. As they retreated, seeking cover behind a row of computer terminals, a familiar voice rang out. "Stand down, all of you!" Victor Hargrove emerged from behind the guards, his expression a mix of anger and resignation. "I suppose it was only a matter of time before you found me, Rice." Darren kept his weapon trained on Hargrove. "It's over, Victor. We know about the virus, the conspiracy. Surrender now, and we can end this without further bloodshed." Hargrove's laugh was bitter. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, do you? This goes far beyond me or global tech." Before Darren could respond, his comm unit crackled to life. "Darren, we've got company." Captain Steele's voice was urgent. "Multiple ships approaching, both Earth and Missouria signatures. We need to extract immediately." With the situation rapidly escalating, Darren made a split-second decision. "Zelna, restrain Hargrove. We're taking him with us." Using her telepathic abilities, Zelna subdued Hargrove while Darren provided cover fire. They retreated to the extraction point, collecting Dr. Vance and the rest of the team along the way. As their shuttle broke atmosphere, the Unity came into view, its shields deflecting weapons fire from the approaching vessels. Captain Steele's voice came through the comm once more. "Brace for emergency docking procedures. We're jumping to hyperspace the moment you're aboard." The shuttle barely cleared the bay doors before the Unity engaged its hyperdrive, leaving Nexus 7 and the hostile fleet behind in a blur of streaking starlight. In the days that followed, the expedition fleet regrouped in deep space, far from any known colonies or outposts. Aboard the Unity, Darren oversaw the interrogation of Victor Hargrove in a specially designed holding cell. Dr. Vance and Zelna assisted, ensuring the accuracy of the information obtained. Hargrove, his arrogance diminished by captivity, revealed the existence of a secret research station. "It's called Chimera," he said, his voice hoarse from hours of questioning. "Hidden in an asteroid belt on the edge of the fringe colonies. That's where the advanced stages of virus weaponization are taking place." Darren leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Who's behind this, Victor? Who's really pulling the strings?" Hargrove's laugh was hollow. "That's the beauty of it, Rice. It's not just one side. Rogue elements from both Earth and Missouria, working together. The conspiracy goes deeper than you could imagine." As Hargrove's revelations unfolded, Dr. Marcus Holt worked tirelessly to analyze the data recovered from Nexus 7. His findings sent shockwaves through the expedition team. "They've made significant progress in reverse engineering Phoebe and Zara's unique traits," Holt explained during a briefing, his face grave. "This has allowed them to create a more potent, adaptable version of the virus. It can mutate rapidly, potentially overcoming any cures we develop." Captain Marcus Steele, ever the tactician, began formulating a plan. "We need to infiltrate this Chimera station," he said, poring over star charts and security schematics. "I propose we use the first vessel we captured as a Trojan horse. It's risky, but it might be our best shot at bypassing their defenses." As Steele assembled and trained a mixed team of human and Missourian operatives, Commander Krax approached Darren with a proposal. "Allow me to lead a diversionary attack on a known Earth first outpost," the Missourian commander said, his voice filled with tenacity. "It will draw attention away from Chimera, increasing your chances of successful infiltration." Darren considered the proposal carefully before nodding. "Approved, but I want a non-lethal approach. We can't afford to escalate tensions any further." As preparations for the mission continued, an unexpected development occurred. Phoebe and Zara reported a sudden increase in their abilities. Phoebe demonstrated an enhanced capacity to interface with technology from greater distances, while Zara's energy-sensing powers became more acute and precise. Dr. Holt, after running a series of tests, presented his findings to Darren. It appears that exposure to the experimental technology on Nexus 7 has accelerated the development of their unique traits. The implications are significant. Darren wrestled with the ethical implications of involving Phoebe and Zara in the upcoming mission. After consulting with the expedition's leadership council, it was decided that their abilities were too crucial to leave behind, but strict safety protocols would be implemented. As the Unity's engineering team, led by Chief Engineer Takashi Yamamoto, modified the captured Earth first vessel for the Infiltration mission, long-range scanners detected unusual energy fluctuations near the asteroid belt housing Chimera Station. Analysis suggests they're powering up a massive device, Yamamoto reported, his brow furrowed in concern. It could be a weapon or worse, a distribution system for the enhanced virus. The discovery added a new sense of urgency to the mission. Darren gathered the Infiltration team, which included Captain Steele, Dr. Vance, and a select group of human and Missouria operatives. Time is not on our side, Darren addressed the team, his voice firm. We have one shot at this. Get in, secure the virus data, and sabotage their operations. Phoebe and Zara will provide support from a secure area of the ship. Remember, detection means certain destruction. Are we clear? The team nodded, their faces set with perseverance. As the disguised vessel approached Chimera Station, Commander Krax launched his diversionary attack. The resulting chaos in the fringe colony's communication networks provided additional cover for their approach. The massive structure of Chimera Station came into view, built into a hollowed-out asteroid and filled with defensive weaponry. The Infiltration team held their breath as they transmitted the stolen access codes, knowing that detection would result in certain destruction. Moments stretched into eternity as they waited for a response. Finally, the docking bay doors began to open. As the team prepared to disembark and begin their mission, an urgent communication came through from the Unity. Multiple fleets detected. The officer's voice crackled over the comm. Approaching from both Earth and Missourian space. This conspiracy, it's bigger than we thought. Darren exchanged grim looks with Captain Steele. The stakes had just gotten higher, and the clock was ticking. With a nod to his team, Darren led the way into the heart of Chimera Station, knowing that the fate of both human and Missourian civilizations hung in the balance. The balance. As they stepped into the cavernous interior of Chimera Station, Darren's instincts screamed danger. Something's not right, he whispered, eyes scanning the dimly lit corridor. Steele, what do you make of this? Captain Marcus Steele frowned, his hand resting on his weapon. These defenses. They're a mix of Earth and Missourian tech, far more advanced than we anticipated. Dr. Vance nodded in agreement, his scientific curiosity piqued despite the tension. Fascinating. The integration of these systems is seamless. We're dealing with a level of cooperation between human and Missourian engineers that goes beyond anything we've seen. Darren made a quick decision. We need to adapt. Steele, take half the team and head for the power core. Create a diversion we can use to cover our tracks. Dr. Vance and I will lead the rest to the central data core. As the team split up, Darren activated his comm link. Phoebe, Zara, we're inside. We'll need your support more than ever. Understood. Phoebe's voice came through clear and focused. I'm interfacing with the station systems now. It's complex, but I think I can manage. Zara chimed in, her tone urgent. Be careful. I'm sensing unusual energy patterns throughout the station. There are hidden defenses I can't fully map yet. Darren's team moved swiftly through the winding corridors, guided by Phoebe's real-time updates on security patrols. They encountered their first obstacle at a sealed bulkhead. its locking mechanism a puzzle of interwoven human and Missourian design. "Phoebe, we need a way through," Darren said, studying the complex interface. There was a moment of silence, then Phoebe's voice returned, strained with effort. "I'm creating a bypass. It's challenging. Their systems are adaptive." The bulkhead slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Darren and his team entered cautiously, their weapons ready. What they saw made them freeze in horror. Row upon row of containment units filled the room, each housing a swirling mass of sickly green liquid. Dr. Vance approached one of the units, his face pale. "This is it," he whispered. "The enhanced virus. Enough to infect entire star systems." Darren's fist tight. "We need to neutralize this threat. But first, we get that data. Move out." As they pressed deeper into the station, alarms suddenly blared to life. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in an eerie glow. "Steele, report." Darren barked into his comm. The captain's voice came through, punctuated by the sound of weapons fire. "We've reached the power core, but we've got company. These security drones are unlike anything I've seen. We'll hold them off as long as we can." Darren's team pushed forward, now racing against time. They encountered automated defense systems that seemed to anticipate their every move. It took all their combined skills and Zara's energy-sensing abilities to navigate the deadly obstacles. Finally, they reached the central data core. A massive holographic interface pulsed before them, its swirling patterns of light a mesmerizing blend of human and Missourian design aesthetics. Dr. Vance approached the interface, his fingers hovering over the controls. "This is incredible. The AI protecting this core. It's not just advanced, it's a true hybrid of human and Missourian neural patterns." Darren joined him, studying the interface. "Can we access it?" Vance shook his head, not without triggering every alarm in the system. "We need—" "Me," Phoebe's voice interrupted. "I can create an interface that bridges our systems with theirs. But Darren, I'll need your help to navigate the AI's defenses." For the next tense minutes, Darren worked in tandem with Phoebe, their minds linked through the neural interface. They wove through the AI's complex defenses, a dance of human intuition and augmented intelligence. Just as they breached the final firewall, a piercing alarm shattered the air. The AI had detected their presence. "Download everything," Darren shouted as security protocols engaged around them. "We're out of time." As the crucial data streamed into their systems, Steele's voice crackled over the comm. "Rice, the power core is sabotaged, but we're cut off from the extraction point. We need an alternate route." Darren's mind raced. "Zara, find them a path out. Phoebe, lock onto their signatures and guide them. We'll rendezvous at the ship." They fought their way back through the station, now alive with security forces and automated defenses. Darren and his team moved as one, their training evident in every coordinated action. As they neared their vessel, a figure stepped out from behind a bulkhead. An older man with steel-gray hair and cold eyes regarded them with a mixture of anger and resignation. "Dr. Alexei Volkov, I presume," Darren said, his weapon trained on the scientist. Volkov's hand hovered over a nearby console. "You have no idea what you've done. What's at stake?" "Step away from the console," Darren ordered. "It's over." Volkov's fingers twitched towards the controls. "If I can't have my life's work, no one will. This station will self-destruct, spreading the virus throughout the asteroid belt. You'll never stop it in time." In that moment, Steele's team rounded the corner, weapons raised. Darren saw his opening and took it. He lunged forward, tackling Volkov to the ground before he could activate the self-destruct sequence. As Steele's team secured Volkov, Darren turned to the others. "We're leaving. Now." They raced to their modified Earth-first vessel, the sounds of battle echoing through the station behind them. As they prepared for undocking procedures, Darren made a final, fateful decision. "Phoebe, can you access the station's power core remotely?" "Yes, but why?" "Oh, I see. It's risky, Darren." "Do it. Time it with our departure. We can't leave this place intact." As their ship detached from Chimera Station, Phoebe worked her technological magic one last time. The station's power core began to overload, a chain reaction building to critical mass. They accelerated away from the doomed facility, threading through the asteroid belt as the Unity coordinated their escape. Behind them, Chimera Station erupted in a massive explosion. The enhanced virus and its production facilities consumed in the inferno. As they approached the Unity, Darren knew their trials were not nearly finished. The data they'd recovered, the prisoner they'd captured, the looming war between Earth and Missouria fleets, all of it would need to be addressed. But for now, as the modified Earth First vessel docked with the Unity, Darren allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. They'd struck a blow against the conspiracy, but the true battle was just beginning. With the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance, Darren and his team prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. As the modified Earth First vessel docked with the Unity, Darren felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. The mission had been successful, but he knew their work was not nearly finished. "Get that data and those samples to the medical bay, now," Darren ordered as his team disembarked. The ship's corridors became a flurry of activity as crew members rushed to follow his commands. In the medical bay, Dr. Marcus Holt and Dr. Elias Vance wasted no time. They immediately began analyzing the enhanced virus samples, their faces etched with concentration as they peered into microscopes and pored over data readouts. "This is unlike anything I've ever seen," Dr. Vance muttered, his eyes wide with a mix of fascination and horror. "The viral structure is incredibly complex." Dr. Holt nodded grimly. "We'll need to leverage Phoebe and Zara's unique physiology to have any hope of developing a cure. Darren, can you bring them here?" Before Darren could respond, the ship lurched violently. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the intercom. "All hands, brace for evasive maneuvers. We're breaking away from the asteroid field." Darren steadied himself against a nearby console as the Unity accelerated, narrowly avoiding debris from the destroyed Chimera Station. Through the viewport, he could see flashes of weapons fire in the distance. The battle between Earth and Missouria forces was intensifying. As the ship stabilized, Darren made his way to the bridge. The scene that greeted him was one of controlled chaos. Officers shouted status reports as Captain Steele expertly guided the Unity through the treacherous space. "Status report," Darren demanded, stepping up to the command console. Captain Steele's eyes never left the view screen as he responded. "We've cleared the immediate danger zone, but our communication systems are being flooded. Both Earth and Missouria high commands are demanding explanations and threatening retaliation." Darren's mind raced. They needed to de-escalate the situation quickly. "Patch me through to both sides. I'll craft a message explaining the true nature of the threat." For the next hour, Darren worked tirelessly, carefully selecting evidence from their mission and composing a diplomatic message that he hoped would cool the rising tensions. As he transmitted the information, he silently prayed it would be enough. Just as Darren finished, Commander Krax's face appeared on the main view screen. "Rice, we've captured a high-ranking Earth First officer during our diversionary attack. You're going to want to hear this." The captured officer, Colonel Matheson, revealed the existence of a hidden network of influential figures on both Earth and Missouria who had been orchestrating the conflict for personal gain. This new information added a layer of complexity to their already precarious situation. Before Darren could fully process this revelation, Dr. Holt's voice came urgently over the intercom. "Darren, we've made a breakthrough. We've identified a potential method for neutralizing the enhanced virus, but we need a rare mineral found only on Helios Prime. Darren's heart raced. Helios Prime, a planet notorious for its extreme environmental conditions and hostile native life forms. He knew the risks, but they had no choice. "Set a course for Helios Prime," Darren ordered, his voice firm with purpose. As the Unity changed course, Darren worked with Captain Steele to assemble a landing party. They selected the most skilled human and Missouria crew members, equipping them with advanced environmental suits and weapons. The ship's training area became a hive of activity as Captain Steele led intensive sessions, combining human and Missouria combat techniques into a unique hybrid fighting style. Darren watched as a diverse team began to move as one, their movements becoming more fluid and coordinated with each passing hour. As they approached Helios Prime, the ship's long-range scanners picked up an unexpected signal. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "we're detecting another vessel in orbit around the planet. It's a global tech industries ship." Darren's teeth gritted. The conspirators were already here. Their mission had just become a race against time. Before they could formulate a new plan, Dr. Vance burst onto the bridge, his face pale. "The virus samples, they're mutating at an accelerated rate. If we don't secure that mineral soon, any cure we develop might be useless." The tension on the bridge was palpable as they entered Helios Prime's orbit. Suddenly, the global tech ship opened fire, filling space with a barrage of energy weapons. "Evasive maneuvers," Captain Steele shouted, his hands flying over the controls. The Unity banked hard, narrowly avoiding the incoming fire. But a glancing hit rocked the ship, sending sparks flying from a nearby console. "Damage report." Darren called out. "Landing systems are damaged." An officer responded. "We can't make a conventional landing." Darren's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then it hit him. A daring, possibly insane idea. "Captain, can our shields create a protective bubble around a small team?" Steele's eyes widened as he grasped Darren's plan. "A high-altitude drop? It's risky, but it might just work." As the Unity continued to dodge and weave through the global tech ship's attacks, Darren briefed the landing team on their new strategy. Faces set with purpose, they donned their environmental suits and prepared for the drop. Darren stood at the head of the team in the airlock, his heart pounding as he watched the swirling, toxic atmosphere of Helios Prime through the small viewport. The planet's surface was barely visible through the turbulent clouds, a landscape of sharp crystalline formations stretching as far as the eye could see. "Shields at maximum." Steele's voice came through their comms. "Prepare for drop in 3, 2, 1. The airlock opened, and Darren felt the momentary pull of the void before the shield bubble enveloped them. Then they were falling, plummeting through Helios Prime's violent atmosphere. The team's training kicked in as they maneuvered through the air, dodging attacks from native flying predators that seemed to materialize out of the toxic clouds. As they neared the ground, Darren activated his suit's landing thrusters, touching down on the crystalline surface with a jolt. The rest of the team landed around him, immediately forming a defensive perimeter. "Move out," Darren ordered, consulting the data provided by Dr. Holt on his heads-up display. The mineral deposit should be 2 kilometers to the northeast. They set off across the treacherous landscape, their boots crunching on the sharp crystal formations. The air around them swirled with toxic gases, visible even through their suit filters. As they approached a ridge, Darren held up a hand, signaling the team to stop. Something on the other side had caught his attention, a glint of metal that seemed out of place in this natural, if hostile, environment. Carefully, they crested the ridge, and Darren's breath caught in his throat. Before them stood the unmistakable remains of an ancient structure, its architecture unlike anything he had ever seen. Smooth, curved surfaces contrasted with sharp angles, creating a form that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "My God!" One of the team members whispered. "What is this place?" Before Darren could respond, Phoebe's voice cut through their comms, her tone urgent. "Darren, incoming global tech troops. They're approaching from the south." Darren's mind raced, taking in their surroundings. The ancient structure could provide cover, and their sensors indicated high concentrations of the needed mineral inside. "Everyone, into the structure," Darren ordered. "Prepare for combat." As the team rushed for cover, the first shots from the global tech forces rang out, energy bolts sizzling through the toxic air. Darren took position behind a fallen column, his weapon at the ready. The firefight erupted in full force, energy weapons lighting up the alien landscape. Darren and his team used their hybrid combat training to full effect, moving in perfect synchronization as they returned fire. But as the battle raged on, Darren knew they were in a precarious position. They needed to secure the mineral and find a way off this hostile planet. And as if that wasn't enough, the mysteries of this ancient alien civilization loomed around them, hinting at secrets that could change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. With global tech forces closing in and time running out, Darren steeled himself for what promised to be the fight of his life. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. An option. The air crackled with energy as global tech forces unleashed another barrage. Darren ducked behind a jagged crystal formation, his suit sensors screaming warnings about the toxic atmosphere. He risked a glance at his team, spread out in defensive positions around the alien structure's entrance. "Captain Steele, we need support." Darren shouted into his comm. "We're pinned down here." "Copy that." Steele's voice came back, tense but controlled. "Initiating tactical strikes on global tech positions. Stand by." Seconds later, precision beams lanced down from the Unity, striking global tech communication arrays and supply vehicles. The enemy's coordinated assault faltered, giving Darren's team a moment to regroup. Dr. Vance's voice cut through the chaos. "Darren, I'm picking up unusual energy readings from inside the structure. The mineral we need might be integrated into its systems." Darren's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't afford to be bogged down in a prolonged firefight, not with the virus mutating rapidly back on the Unity. "All right, we're splitting up," Darren decided. "I'll take a small team inside. The rest of you, hold this position and keep global tech off our backs." He selected 3 team members, Dr. Vance, Phoebe, and a Missouria combat specialist named Krell. They dashed into the alien structure, the sounds of battle fading behind them. The interior was a maze of smooth, curved surfaces interspersed with sharp angles. Pulsing lines of energy coursed through the walls, casting an eerie glow. As they pressed deeper, they encountered a series of puzzles, holographic interfaces that seemed to require specific interactions to progress. "It's some kind of security system," Dr. Vance muttered, studying the alien symbols. Phoebe stepped forward, her eyes unfocused. I can sense something. The logic behind these puzzles. It's alien, but I think I can guide us through." With Phoebe's psychic insights, they began to navigate the challenges. Darren watched in amazement as she manipulated energy fields and rearranged holographic symbols, each successful solution opening new pathways deeper into the structure. Suddenly, Zara's voice crackled over their comms. "Darren, I'm sensing hidden power sources all around you. Be careful. There are traps everywhere." Her warning came just in time. As they entered a new chamber, Krell's foot triggered a hidden panel. A wall of energy sprang to life, nearly bisecting their group. Darren yanked Krell back just in time, the Missouria scales smoking slightly from the near miss. "Thanks for the heads up, Zara," Darren said, his heart pounding. "Keep those senses sharp." Outside, the battle intensified. Commander Krax's voice came through, strained but determined. "Deploying Missouria fighters for air support." We'll keep them off you as long as we can, but hurry. Darren's team pressed on, their progress a delicate dance of Phoebe's intuition, Zara's remote sensing, and their own combat instincts. Finally, they reached a vast central chamber. A massive crystalline formation dominated the room, pulsing with vibrant energy. Dr. Vance's eyes widened as he scanned it with his equipment. This is it. The mineral concentration is off the charts. But it's integrated into the building's power systems. Extracting it won't be easy. As they approached the crystal, the chamber hummed to life. A holographic interface materialized, projecting images of a long-extinct alien species. Tall, ethereal beings with multiple limbs and iridescent skin filled the air around them. The progenitors, Dr. Vance breathed, all evident in his voice. The hologram shifted, showing scenes of devastation. Entire worlds consumed by a virulent plague. Then, images of the progenitors working feverishly in laboratories, developing the very crystal technology before them. They faced a pandemic too, Darren realized. And this was their solution. Dr. Vance nodded, his fingers flying over his datapad. The crystal's properties are even more potent than we thought. This could be the key to stopping the enhanced virus. As they worked to safely extract a portion of the crystal, the structure shuddered. Outside, the battle had taken a dire turn. Captain Steele's voice came through, urgent and strained. Darren, Global Tech just deployed heavy mechs. We're bringing the Unity into the atmosphere for close support, but we can't hold this position long. You need to wrap it up. Darren gritted his teeth, watching as Dr. Vance carefully separated a significant chunk of the crystal from its housing. The moment it came free, the entire chamber began to shake violently. Ancient machinery roared to life around them. Dr. Vance's face paled as he read the energy signatures. We've triggered some kind of self-destruct sequence. This whole place is going to collapse. Move, Darren shouted, securing the crystal in a protective case. Everyone out now. They sprinted through the collapsing structure, dodging falling debris and leaping over chasms that opened beneath their feet. Phoebe's psychic link guided them through the maze of corridors, retracing their steps at breakneck speed. As they emerged from the alien building, Darren saw the full scope of the battle. The Unity hung low in the sky, its weapons blazing as it provided cover fire. Missouria fighters dueled with Global Tech aircraft, filling the toxic air with explosions and debris. The ground team was barely holding their position, facing off against massive, heavily armed mechs that stomped across the crystalline landscape. As Darren watched, one of the mechs brought its foot down, shattering a formation and sending razor-sharp shards flying in all directions. Captain Steele, we need immediate extraction. Darren called out, ducking as energy bolts sizzled overhead. Copy that, Steele replied, sending in the shuttles now. But we can't stay in this atmosphere much longer. The Unity's taken heavy damage. Darren turned to his team, both those who'd gone into the structure and those who'd held the line outside. This is it. Make for the extraction point. Move fast, stay low, and watch each other's backs. They surged forward, a united force of humans and Missourians. The Unity provided covering fire, its remaining weapons carving a path through the global tech forces. Native flying predators, drawn by the chaos, dove at them from above, adding another layer of danger to their mad dash. The extraction shuttles descended through the swirling, toxic clouds, their landing thrusters kicking up clouds of crystalline dust. Darren and his team fought their way forward, step by grueling step. Just as they reached the shuttles, the ground began to shake violently. The alien structure was sinking into the planet's surface, causing widespread instability. Chasms opened up around them, venting plumes of poisonous gas. Go, 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 Darren shouted, practically throwing the last of his team into the shuttles. He leaped aboard the final craft just as the ground gave way beneath it, the shuttle's engines roaring as it clawed for altitude. As they ascended through Helios Prime's turbulent atmosphere, Darren caught a final glimpse of the battlefield below. The alien structure had vanished entirely, leaving a massive, smoldering crater. Global tech forces were in disarray, their mechs toppling into newly formed ravines. The shuttles docked with the Unity, which immediately broke orbit. Darren stumbled onto the bridge, still catching his breath, in time to see multiple global tech ships appearing on the long-range sensors. "Get us out of here, Captain," Darren ordered. Captain Steele nodded grimly, his hands dancing over the controls. Initiating hyperdrive. Now. The stars stretched into lines and the Unity leaped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the chaos of Helios Prime behind. But Darren knew their mission was not nearly finished. They had the crystal, yes, but now came the challenge of developing a cure and unraveling the mysteries of the progenitors. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Darren felt the weight of their next steps settle upon him. He turned to Dr. Holt and Dr. Vance, who were already examining the alien crystal with reverent care. "Let's get to work," Darren said, his voice firm. "We've got 2 civilizations counting on us." Us. He turned to face the rest of the bridge crew. "Set course for the outer reaches of Sector 17. We need time to regroup and plan our next move." As the Unity cruised through the vast expanse of space, the ship hummed with activity. Captain Marcus Steele's voice rang out over the intercom. "All hands. Damage report. I want a full assessment of our systems within the hour." Chief Engineer Takashi Yamamoto responded immediately, his voice tinged with concern. "Captain, we've taken significant damage to our port-side shield generators and the aft propulsion systems. I'm dispatching repair teams now, but it's going to take time." "Do what you can, Takashi. We need this ship back in fighting shape as soon as possible," Steele replied, his eyes scanning the tactical displays. Darren made his way to the medical bay, where Dr. Marcus Holt and Dr. Elias Vance were already setting up a series of complex devices around the alien crystal. The air buzzed with nervous energy as technicians carefully removed the crystal from its protective case. "How soon can we begin testing?" Darren asked, watching as Dr. Holt calibrated a scanner. "We're setting up the initial trials now," Dr. Vance replied, his eyes never leaving the crystal. "But Darren, this technology is like nothing we've ever seen. It could take weeks, maybe months to fully understand its properties." Phoebe and Zara entered the lab, their eyes wide with curiosity. Dr. Holt looked up, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "I'm not sure it's safe for you two to be in here while we're working with the virus." Darren stepped in, recognizing the sisters' eagerness to help. "What if we set up an observation room? They could monitor the tests from there, offer insights without risking exposure." Dr. Holt nodded, relief evident in his expression. "Excellent idea. We'll get that set up right away." As the medical team continued their work, Darren retreated to his quarters. He activated his personal terminal, linking it to the ship's AI. "Begin analysis of the Progenitor hologram data. Focus on language decryption and any references to medical technology." Hours passed as Darren pored over the information, his eyes straining in the dim light of his cabin. Suddenly, a pattern emerged in the ancient symbols. "Computer, cross-reference this sequence with known genetic markers." The AI's response was almost instantaneous. "Match found. The progenitor language contains embedded genetic information." Darren's heart raced as he realized the implications. He was about to contact Dr. Holt when an alert chimed on his communication device. Captain Steele's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Darren, we've received a transmission. I need you on the bridge immediately." Within minutes, Darren stood beside Captain Steele, listening to the encrypted message. The familiar diplomatic frequency sent a chill down his spine. "I recognize this," he muttered. "It's an old code we used during the early peace talks with Missouria." Commander Krax leaned in, his scales shimmering under the bridge lights. "It could be a trap. Global tech has proven resourceful in the past." Captain Steele nodded grimly. "Agreed. We'll proceed with caution. Deploy long-range probes to the coordinates and establish fallback points along our route. I want us prepared for any eventuality." As the Unity changed course to investigate the mysterious transmission, activity in the medical bay reached a fever pitch. Dr. Holt's voice crackled over the intercom, excitement evident in his tone. "Darren, Captain, you need to see this. We've had a breakthrough." Darren and Captain Steele hurried to the lab, where they found Dr. Holt gesturing animatedly at a holographic display. "By combining the crystal's properties with genetic markers from Phoebe and Zara, we've created a prototype treatment. Initial simulations show it neutralizing the enhanced virus." "That's incredible," Darren breathed, studying the rapidly changing data on the screen. Dr. Vance tempered their enthusiasm. "It's promising but highly unstable. We need more time to refine it before we can even consider human trials." Captain Steele's communicator buzzed. "Captain, we've arrived at the rendezvous coordinates," the helmsman reported. "On our way," Steele replied. He turned to Darren. "I want you with me on this one. Whatever's waiting for us out there, I have a feeling we'll need your diplomatic experience." As they made their way to the shuttle bay, Darren couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. The Unity had come so far, overcome so much, but he knew their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, and the next few hours could change everything. The shuttle detached from the Unity, gliding silently through the asteroid field towards a small, unmarked station. Darren's mind raced with possibilities. Who had sent a message? What secrets awaited them aboard that mysterious outpost? As they approached the docking bay, he steeled himself for whatever lay ahead, knowing that each step forward brought them closer to unraveling the conspiracy that threatened both Earth and Missouria. Missouria. As they approached the docking bay, Darren's grip tightened on the shuttle's control panel. The station loomed before them, a silent sentinel in the vast emptiness of space. The docking procedure went smoothly, and as the airlock hissed open, Darren and Captain Steele stepped into the dimly lit corridor of the mysterious outpost. Their footsteps echoed in the eerie silence. "Stay alert," Steele whispered, his hand resting on his sidearm. They made their way through the winding passageways, every sense on high alert. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a familiar figure, Admiral Thorne. "Gentlemen," Thorne said, his voice grave, "we have much to discuss." Hours later, the Unity emerged from hyperspace in a remote sector of neutral space. The ship's engines hummed as it approached a small asteroid field, home to an abandoned mining outpost. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the intercom. "All hands, prepare for docking procedures. We'll be using this outpost as our temporary base of operations." Darren watched from the bridge as the Unity carefully maneuvered alongside the asteroid. The outpost was a squat, utilitarian structure, its metal exterior pitted and scarred from years of exposure to space debris. As soon as the docking clamps engaged, Chief Engineer Takashi Yamamoto led his team onto the outpost. They moved with practiced efficiency, setting up portable generators and life support systems. "Darren," Captain Steele called, gesturing towards the main airlock. "Let's get a look at our new home." They stepped into the outpost's cavernous main chamber. The air was stale, and a fine layer of dust covered every surface. Darren's footsteps echoed in the vast space as he made his way to a bank of derelict computer terminals. "This will do," he murmured, running his hand along the edge of a console. "We can set up our intelligence analysis station here." Dr. Holt and Dr. Vance wasted no time in claiming the outpost's former mineral processing center for their makeshift laboratory. Darren watched as they carefully transferred the alien crystal from its protective case, setting it on a hastily assembled examination table. "How long before you can resume your work on the treatment?" Darren asked. Dr. Holt's eyes never left the crystal as he replied, "Give us a few hours to get the equipment calibrated. We'll start running new simulations as soon as possible." Darren nodded and turned his attention to the data analysis team. They had already begun setting up their workstations, holographic displays flickering to life as they unpacked their equipment. "Let's get to work," Darren said, addressing the team. "We need to comb through every byte of data Admiral Thorne gave us. Look for financial transactions, communication logs, anything that ties global tech to officials on Earth and Missouria." As the hours ticked by, the outpost buzzed with activity. Darren found himself moving from station to station, coordinating efforts between the research team and the data analysts. He was in the middle of reviewing a particularly complex series of financial transfers when Phoebe burst into the room, her eyes wide with excitement. "Darren, you need to see this," she said, grabbing his arm and pulling him towards one of the outpost's ancient computer banks. Phoebe placed her hand on the console, and to Darren's amazement, the archaic system sprang to life. Data streamed across the screen at an impossible rate. "How are you doing that?" Darren asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Phoebe shook her head, looking as surprised as he felt. "I don't know. It's like I can talk to the computer directly. I'm processing the data faster than I ever could before." Darren's mind raced with the implications. This could be a game changer. "Can you access the financial records we've been analyzing?" Phoebe nodded, and within seconds, complex patterns of transactions began to materialize on the screen. Connections that would have taken the team days to uncover were now laid bare in minutes. "There," Darren said, pointing to a recurring series of transfers. "That's the link we've been looking for. It connects global tech to at least 3 high-ranking Earth officials and... Wait, is that a Missourian diplomatic code?" As they delved deeper into the data, the true scope of the conspiracy began to take shape. The conflict between Earth and Missouria had been carefully orchestrated, a smokescreen to hide massive profits and resource exploitation. In the medical lab, a similar breakthrough was unfolding. Zara stood near the alien crystal, her eyes closed in concentration. Dr. Holt watched in fascination as the crystal pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light. "It's responding to her," Dr. Vance said, his voice hushed. "The energy patterns. They're shifting in ways we haven't seen before." Dr. Holt nodded, his fingers flying over a datapad. "And look at these readings. The crystal's molecular structure is becoming more stable. This could be the key to refining our prototype treatment." As the research team redoubled their efforts, Captain Steele oversaw the outpost defenses. He stood in the newly established command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of sensor buoys and fighter patrols. "Commander Cracks," Steele called out, "how's the training progressing?" The Missourian warrior straightened, his scales glinting under the harsh lighting. "The Joint Human-Missourian Security Force is adapting well, Captain. We're running combat simulations in the lower levels." Steele nodded approvingly. "Good. We need to be prepared for anything. Global tech won't give up easily, and we can't afford to be caught off guard." As night fell, or what passed for night in the eternal darkness of space, Darren found himself back in the main chamber. The excitement of their breakthroughs had given way to an unbreakable spirit as the full extent of the conspiracy became clear. He was studying a star chart, trying to identify potential locations for Global Tech's hidden operations, when Dr. Holt's voice came over the intercom. "Darren, Captain Steele, please come to the lab immediately. We've had a major development." Darren hurried to the makeshift laboratory, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and apprehension. As he entered, he saw Dr. Holt and Dr. Vance hunched over a holographic display, their faces lit by its ethereal glow. "What is it?" Darren asked, his eyes darting between the two scientists. Dr. Holt looked up, a cautious smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "We've done it. By incorporating trace elements found in this asteroid's mineral composition, we've stabilized the prototype treatment. Initial simulations show a 90% effectiveness rate against the enhanced virus." Captain Steele, who had entered just behind Darren, let out a low whistle. "That's incredible news, Doctor. How soon can we begin production?" Before Dr. Holt could answer, the outpost alert system blared to life. Red warning lights bathed the room in an ominous glow as Commander Krax's voice filled the air. "Captain, we've detected an incoming ship. It's approaching rapidly and not responding to hails." Steele's face hardened as he turned to Darren. "It seems our time here may be cut short. Let's hope we're prepared for whatever's coming our way." Captain Steele's words hung in the air as the alert klaxons continued to blare. Darren's mind raced, quickly formulating a plan. "We need to move now," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Dr. Holt, secure that prototype. We can't risk losing it." As the science team scrambled to pack up their equipment, Darren turned to Captain Steele. "Sir, I have an idea. We need a small team to infiltrate the Arcturus system. It's our best chance to gather more intel on Global Tekka's operations." Steele nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed. Assemble your team and prepare for immediate departure. I'll have Chief Yamamoto ready a modified transport ship." Within minutes, Darren stood in the hangar bay with his hand-picked team. Phoebe, whose enhanced abilities would be crucial for the mission, and a select group of seasoned operatives. As they boarded the transport, Chief Yamamoto approached, holding out a small device. "Latest stealth tech," he explained. "Should keep you off their scanners. Good luck out there." The transport detached from the outpost, slipping away as the Unity engaged the unknown vessel. Darren watched the battle fade into the distance as they entered hyperspace, his thoughts already focused on the mission ahead. Hours later, they dropped out of hyperspace near the Arcturus system. Darren activated the stealth systems, and the ship glided silently towards the bustling neutral trading station. "All right, team," Darren said, addressing the group. "We go in as traders. Keep your eyes open and comms chatter to a minimum." They docked without incident, blending seamlessly with the diverse array of ships at the station. As they made their way through the crowded corridors, Darren marveled at the mix of species and cultures. Humans rubbed shoulders with Missourians and a dozen other alien races, all going about their business. Phoebe's eyes glazed over slightly as she interfaced with the station systems. "Got it," she whispered. "The meeting is in a secure conference room in the restricted section. We need to move fast." They approached the entrance to the restricted area, only to find a state-of-the-art security checkpoint. Darren's heart sank as he saw the biometric scanners. "This wasn't in the intel," he muttered. "Phoebe, can you do anything?" She nodded, her fingers dancing in the air as she manipulated unseen data streams. "I can create a temporary override, but it'll trigger a silent alarm. We'll have minutes at most." "Do it," Darren ordered. The security panel blinked green, and they slipped through. As they hurried down the corridor, fragments of conversation drifted from the conference room ahead. "Increase production immediately. The conflict must escalate. New strain ready for deployment." Darren held up a hand, signaling the team to stop. He pulled out a set of covert recording devices, distributing them quickly. "Plant these around the room. We need concrete evidence." As the team worked, Phoebe's expression suddenly changed. "Darren, incoming transmission from the Unity." Captain Steele's voice crackled through their earpieces, tense and urgent. "Darren, We've detected a fleet of unmarked ships entering the system. Energy signatures match the ones that attacked us at Thorne Station. We're going dark to avoid detection. You're on your own for now. Complete the mission and get out of there. Darren's mind raced, calculating their options. Understood, Captain. We'll find a way. He turned to the team, his expression resolute. Change of plans. Phoebe, take half the team to the communication hub. We need to warn the Unity and possibly call for backup. The rest of you with me. We're going to get as much intel as we can before we're forced to bug out. As Phoebe's group departed, Darren led his team closer to the conference room. Through the door, they could hear Ray's voices. We can't wait any longer, Admiral Chun. A gruff voice shouted. The new strain is ready. We need to deploy it now. Darren's blood ran cold. He recognized that voice. Admiral Victor Hawthorne, one of the most decorated officers in Earth's fleet. Patience, Victor, a calmer voice replied. We must ensure all our assets are in place before we dash. The conversation was cut short by the sound of distant gunfire. Darren's comm crackled to life, Phoebe's voice urgent. Darren, we've encountered resistance. Station security is onto us. We need to go now. Copy that, Darren replied. He turned to his team, his expression grim. Mission abort. We head for the ship immediately. As they turned to leave, Darren noticed a data device left on a nearby console. In a split-second decision, he grabbed it, hoping it might contain valuable information. The team fought their way back through the station, using every trick and tactic at their disposal to evade the security forces. They reunited with Phoebe's group at the docking bay, one of their operatives nursing a plasma burn on his arm. As they boarded their transport, station security forces poured into the bay. Phoebe's eyes glowed as she interfaced with the ship's systems, overriding the docking clamps. Hold on, she shouted as the ship lurched free, blasting out of the station. They emerged into chaos. The Unity had reappeared, engaging the fleet of unmarked ships in a fierce battle. Explosions lit up the void as fighters danced between larger vessels. This is Darren Rice to Unity, he called over the comm, requesting immediate extraction. Copy that, Darren, Captain Steele's voice replied. We'll clear you a path. Stand by 4-. His words were cut off as their ship rocked violently. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit. Hyperdrive's damaged, the pilot shouted. Darren gripped his seat as enemy fire streaked past their viewport. Unity, we're hit. We need immediate assistance. As if in answer, the Unity swept past them, its guns blazing. The massive ship provided cover as Darren's transport limped towards safety. Chief Yamamoto's voice crackled over the comm. Darren, listen carefully. I'm going to talk you through an emergency hyperdrive repair. It's risky, but it's your only shot. As enemy ships closed in, Darren worked frantically, following Yamamoto's instructions. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he rerouted power and bypassed damaged systems. That's it, Yamamoto shouted. Now punch it. Darren slammed the hyperdrive control. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a lurch that nearly knocked him off his feet, the stars stretched into lines, and they were gone. They emerged at the rendezvous point, the Unity appearing moments later. As they were brought aboard, Darren clutched the stolen data device, his mind racing with the implications of what they'd discovered. In the debriefing room, Captain Steele listened intently as Darren recounted their mission. Dr. Holt and Dr. Vance pored over the data from the stolen device, their expressions growing more concerned by the moment. This new strain, Dr. Holt said, looking up from his datapad. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Our current prototype treatment won't be effective against it. Captain Steele's face hardened. Then we need to move fast. Set course for a series of randomized jumps. We can't risk being followed. As the Unity leapt into hyperspace, Darren stood at the viewport, watching the stars streak by. They had gained valuable intelligence, but at a cost. Their enemies now knew they were actively working against them, and time was running out. The race to save both Earth and Missouria had entered its most critical phase, and Darren knew that their next move could determine the fate of two civilizations. Worlds. The weight of their discoveries and the looming threat pressed heavily on Darren's mind as he gazed into the void. His contemplation was interrupted by a violent shudder that coursed through the Unity. The ship lurched, nearly throwing Darren off his feet. Red warning lights bathed the corridor in an eerie glow as alarms blared throughout the vessel. "All hands, report to stations." Captain Steele's voice rang out over the intercom. "We have a critical malfunction in the engine core." Darren sprinted towards a bridge, his heart pounding. As he entered, he saw Chief Engineer Yamamoto hunched over a console, his face creased with concern. "Talk to me, Chief," Captain Steele demanded, his voice taut with tension. Yamamoto looked up, his expression grim. "The strain on the hyperdrive during our escape from Arcturus has caused a cascading failure in the engine core. We need to drop out of hyperspace immediately and conduct emergency repairs." Steele nodded sharply. "Do it." The star-streaked view outside the viewport collapsed into pinpoints of light as the Unity dropped back into normal space. They found themselves in an unfamiliar star system, a blue-green planet dominating the view. "Full scan of the system," Steele ordered. "We need to know what we're dealing with." Minutes ticked by as the ship's sensors probed their surroundings. Finally, Lieutenant Chen looked up from her station. "Sir, the planet shows signs of being habitable. And there's something else. We're detecting abandoned structures on the surface." Steele's eyes narrowed as he considered their options. "Yamamoto, how long will repairs take?" The chief engineer shook his head. "At least several days, Captain. We need to land to access the damaged systems properly." "Then we make the most of the situation," Steele decided. "Prepare for planetary landing. We'll use this opportunity to resupply and continue our work." As the Unity breached the planet's atmosphere, the crew stared in awe at the landscape unfolding beneath them. Vast forests stretched to the horizon, interspersed with the crumbling remnants of an ancient civilization. Dr. Vance, who had joined them on the bridge, leaned forward with keen interest. "Those structures, they bear a striking resemblance to Progenitor architecture. This could be another of their sites." The ship touched down in a clearing near a cluster of ruins. As the engines powered down, Steele turned to Darren. "Assemble a ground team. I want you to scout those structures. If this is a Progenitor site, there might be resources we can use." Darren nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. He gathered Phoebe and a small team of operatives, equipping them with survey gear and weapons. As they exited the Unity, the alien air filled their lungs breathable but with an unfamiliar tang. They approached the nearest structure, its once smooth surfaces now pitted and overgrown with local vegetation. Phoebe's eyes glowed as she interfaced with her enhanced senses, scanning for any signs of active technology. "There," she said, pointing to a barely visible seam in the ground. "I'm detecting faint power signatures beneath the surface." Darren signaled the team to clear away the overgrowth. As they worked, a hidden entrance revealed itself. A massive door of an unknown alloy, its surface etched with intricate patterns. "Can you get us in?" Darren asked Phoebe. She nodded, her fingers dancing in the air as she interfaced with the unseen systems. After a tense moment, the door slid open with a groan of ancient mechanisms, revealing a dark passage leading underground. Darren activated his comm captain. "We've found an entrance to an underground complex. Requesting permission to proceed." "Granted." Steele's voice crackled back. "But be careful, Rice. We don't know what you might wake up down there." The team descended into the complex, their lights cutting through millennia of darkness. The air grew cooler, filled with the musty scent of long-abandoned spaces. As they ventured deeper, dormant systems flickered to life, responding to their presence. They emerged into a vast chamber filled with unfamiliar equipment. Dr. Holt's voice came through their comms, excitement evident in his tone. "This is incredible. From what I can see through your feeds, this appears to be an advanced medical research facility. The potential here is enormous." As Darren's team spread out to explore, Phoebe suddenly tensed. "Darren, I'm detecting a power surge. Something's activating." Before they could react, panels in the wall slid open, revealing dozens of sleek, metallic drones. Red targeting lasers danced across the team as the drones hummed to life. "Fall back," Darren shouted, drawing his weapon. The air filled with the whine of energy weapons as the team retreated, using the unfamiliar terrain to their advantage. They ducked and weaved through narrow corridors, the drones in hot pursuit. Darren's mind raced as he led his team through the complex. They needed a way to shut down these defenses and fast. As if in answer to his thoughts, they rounded a corner and found themselves in what appeared to be a central control room. "Phoebe, see if you can access the systems," Darren ordered, taking up a defensive position at the entrance. Phoebe's eyes glowed brightly as she interfaced with the alien technology. Long seconds passed as the sound of approaching drones grew louder. Just as the first drone appeared in the doorway, the facility went silent. The drones dropped to the ground, inert. "I'm in," Phoebe announced, her voice filled with awe. "Darren, you won't believe what I'm seeing. This facility, it was a quarantine and research station. The progenitors were fighting their own pandemic." Darren's heart raced as he relayed the information to the Unity. This discovery could change everything. As Captain Steele ordered more teams to the surface and the scientists prepared to set up a temporary lab, Darren couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something monumental. The race against time had taken an unexpected turn. With the resources of this progenitor facility at their disposal, they might just have a fighting chance against the conspiracy and the deadly virus. But as Darren looked at the alien technology surrounding them, he knew that unlocking its secrets would be a challenge unlike any they had faced before. Darren's mind raced with possibilities as he studied the alien technology surrounding them. The progenitor facility held immense potential, but unlocking its secrets would be a monumental task. Over the next several days, the Unity's crew worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of the ancient research station. Dr. Holt and Dr. Vance pored over the data, their expertise in xenobiology proving invaluable as they deciphered the progenitor's medical research. As Darren oversaw the exploration of the facility's lower levels, Phoebe's voice crackled over his comm. "Darren, we've made a breakthrough. You need to see this." He hurried to the makeshift lab where the scientists had set up their equipment. Dr. Holt looked up as he entered, his eyes bright with excitement. "We've done it. Using the progenitor data, we've developed a more effective cure for the virus." Captain Steele, who had joined them, nodded gravely. "Excellent work, but we can't stop here. We need to prevent the release of the new strain entirely." Darren agreed. The data we stole from Arcturus Station. It mentioned a primary research and production facility. That's where they'll be developing the enhanced virus. Steele's expression hardened with commitment. "Then that's our next target. We'll set course as soon as the Unity's repairs are complete." Over the next few hours, the crew prepared for departure. Chief Engineer Yamamoto oversaw the final repairs to the ship systems, integrating salvage progenitor technology to enhance their capabilities. As the Unity lifted off from the alien world, Darren stood on the bridge, watching the mysterious planet recede. They had gained a powerful advantage, but the real challenge lay ahead. Days passed as they traveled through hyperspace. Darren spent the time strategizing with Captain Steele and training with his team. The coordinates from the decrypted transmission led them to a remote sector of space, far from established trade routes. As they dropped out of hyperspace, a massive asteroid field filled the view screen. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced over her console. "Sir, I'm detecting advanced sensor arrays and automated defenses throughout the field. A direct approach would be suicide." Darren studied the tactical display, his mind working through possible solutions. "We need a way to slip past their defenses undetected." He turned to Phoebe and Zara, who stood nearby. "Can you, too, create a telepathic network to manipulate their external sensors?" The sisters exchanged a glance, then nodded. "We can create a blind spot," Phoebe confirmed. "But it won't last long." "It'll have to be enough," Steele said. He took the helm, his hands moving confidently over the controls. "Everyone, prepare for some turbulence." The Unity plunged into the asteroid field. Steele's expert piloting, combined with the ship's enhanced systems, allowed them to navigate the treacherous maze of space rocks. Darren watched in awe as they threaded through gaps that seemed barely wider than the ship itself. As they neared the center of the field, a massive structure came into view, the hidden facility. Darren turned to his assembled team. "This is it. We go in fast and quiet. Dr. Holt, you're with me. Our primary objective is to secure or destroy the virus samples." They boarded a modified shuttle equipped with Progenitor cloaking technology. As they approached the facility's docking bay, Phoebe's voice came through their comms. "I've created a false docking authorization. You're clear to enter." The shuttle glided into the bay, touching down softly. As the team disembarked, Darren was struck by the scale of the operation. Scientists and security personnel moved purposefully through the area, a mix of humans and Missourians working side by side. Using the facility's labyrinthine corridors for cover, they made their way toward the central research lab. Dr. Holt's portable scanner beeped softly, detecting high levels of biohazard containment protocols. As they approached the junction, voices drifted from around the corner. Darren held up a hand, signaling the team to stop. He edged closer, straining to hear. "Admiral Thorne wants the final preparations completed within the hour," a stern voice said. "The virus deployment cannot be delayed." Darren's blood ran cold. Admiral Thorne, one of the highest-ranking officials in Earth's fleet, was here, overseeing the operation personally. This changed everything. He turned to his team, speaking in a hushed tone. "Change of plans. We're splitting up. Dr. Holt, take half the team and secure the virus samples. I'll lead the rest to apprehend Thorne." As the team separated, Darren led his group towards the facility's command center. They encountered increased security, forcing them to rely on silent takedowns and Zara's energy-sensing abilities to avoid detection. Meanwhile, Dr. Holt's team reached the main research lab. A series of airlocks and decontamination chambers protected the entrance. Phoebe's voice guided them through the security protocols, allowing them to enter undetected. Inside, they found multiple containment units housing samples of the new virus strain. Dr. Holt began neutralizing the samples with their Progenitor-enhanced cure, but the sheer volume of virus present made complete neutralization impossible in the limited time they had. Darren's group reached the command center, bursting through the doors to confront Admiral Thorne and his security detail. The room erupted into chaos as both sides opened fire. Darren and his team used their superior training and coordination to overcome the Admiral's forces, eventually subduing Thorne himself. As alarms began to blare throughout the facility, both teams started their extraction. Dr. Holt, unable to neutralize all the virus samples, initiated a containment breach protocol, sealing off the research lab. The infiltration team fought their way back to the docking bay, facing waves of security forces. Zara's ability to disrupt energy weapons proved invaluable as they cleared a path to their shuttle. Darren ensured the unconscious Admiral Thorne was secured aboard. As the shuttle launched from the facility, the Unity emerged from hiding, its weapons blazing to provide cover. They sped away from the asteroid field, narrowly avoiding pursuit from the facility's patrol ships. Once safely in hyperspace, the crew took stock of their mission. They had prevented the immediate deployment of the new virus strain and captured a key figure in the conspiracy. However, the scale of the operation they had uncovered was staggering. As Dr. Holt began analyzing the data recovered from the facility, Darren knew their work was far from finished. They had struck a significant blow against the conspiracy, but the threat to both Earth and Missouria remained. With Admiral Thorne in custody and a wealth of new intelligence, they now faced the challenge of exposing the full scope of the plot and bringing the conspirators to justice. Justice. The Unity's crew knew they had struck a significant blow, but the fight was a long way to go. As the ship hurtled through hyperspace, Dr. Holt and his team worked tirelessly in the makeshift lab, analyzing the data recovered from the facility's computers. Darren paced the bridge, his mind racing with the implications of their recent discovery. "Captain," Dr. Holt's voice crackled over the comm, urgency evident in his tone. "We've found something disturbing in the data. There are multiple backup sites for virus production, scattered across both human and Missourian space." Captain Steele's expression hardened. "Understood, Doctor. Meet me in the conference room in 10 minutes. Darren, round up the key crew members. We need to strategize." As the team gathered around the holographic display, Captain Steele laid out the situation. "We've dealt a blow to their main facility, but this conspiracy runs deeper than we thought. We need to split our efforts." Darren nodded, already formulating a plan. "I can lead a team to expose the conspiracy. We'll compile all the evidence we've gathered and transmit it to trusted officials and media outlets." "Good," Steele agreed. "I'll focus on locating these backup production sites. Phoebe, Zara, I want you two analyzing the data. Your abilities should help us narrow down the locations quickly." As the meeting adjourned, the crew sprang into action. Darren sequestered himself in his quarters, compiling a comprehensive dossier of evidence. He carefully organized Admiral Hawthorne's testimony, financial records, and communication logs into a damning case against the conspirators. Using secure channels provided by their remaining allies, Darren began transmitting the information to carefully vetted officials and journalists. He worked tirelessly, knowing that every minute counted. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Phoebe and Zara stood before a complex holographic display, their eyes glowing as they processed vast amounts of data. Captain Steele watched in amazement as patterns began to emerge, potential locations highlighted in rapid succession. "We've identified 3 primary locations, Captain," Phoebe announced, her voice tinged with fatigue. "Each one is heavily fortified and located in remote sectors." Steele was about to respond when a priority transmission cut through the ship's communications. "Sir," Lieutenant Chin called out, "incoming message from Earth." The crew gathered around as the message played. Their efforts to expose the conspiracy were bearing fruit. Several high-ranking officials implicated in the plot had been arrested, and public outrage was growing as more details came to light. However, the sense of victory was short-lived. The transmission carried a chilling warning. Some members of the conspiracy, realizing their plans were unraveling, had initiated a contingency protocol. Intelligence suggested they were preparing to release the enhanced virus at multiple population centers across both human and Missourian worlds. Captain Steele's decision was immediate. Set a course for the nearest backup production site. We're bypassing the rendezvous point. The Unity surged forward, its engines straining as they pushed to maximum speed. The crew prepared for battle, checking weapons and running last-minute system diagnostics. As they dropped out of hyperspace, a desolate moon filled the view screen. The facility was a dark blot on its surface, surrounded by a web of defense systems. "Commander Cracks, prepare your strike team," Steele ordered. "You'll be going in with our new Progenitor-enhanced weaponry. Your objective is to breach the facility and secure the virus samples. As Krax's team boarded their assault shuttle, Dr. Holt approached the captain. We've modified the ship's atmosphere filtration systems to create a large-scale aerosol delivery mechanism for the cure. If we can get close enough, we can neutralize any potential virus release over a wide area. Steele nodded grimly. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. All hands, battle stations. The Unity engaged the facility's outer defenses, its upgraded weapons tearing through energy shields and automated turrets. Under the cover of this assault, Krax's team launched their shuttle, streaking towards the moon's surface. The battle raged across multiple fronts. On the moon, Krax led his team through the facility's corridors, facing fierce resistance from the conspirators' security forces. In orbit, the Unity danced through a hail of weapons fire, its enhanced systems pushed to their limits. We've breached the central production area. Krax's voice came through the comms, punctuated by the sound of weapons fire. There's a massive stockpile of the enhanced virus here, prepared for deployment. Hold your position, Steele ordered. Dr. Holt, deploy the atmospheric scrubbers. We can't risk any accidental release. As the situation on the moon stabilized, an urgent transmission cut through the chaos. The conspiracy's remaining leaders had made their move, releasing the enhanced virus in 3 major population centers, one on Earth, one on Missouria, and one on a joint colony world. Captain Steele's face was grim as he issued his next order. Set course for the joint colony world. It's the nearest affected site. As the Unity prepared to jump to hyperspace, Darren worked feverishly to coordinate with their allies in both governments, organizing responses to the other outbreak sites. The ship emerged near the joint colony world, finding it in a state of panic. The enhanced virus had already begun to spread, overwhelming local medical facilities. Initiate atmospheric dispersal, Steele commanded. The Unity's modified systems hummed to life, releasing a cloud of the cure into the planet's upper atmosphere. As the cure began to take effect, Dr. Vance led a medical team to the surface, setting up field hospitals and working alongside local staff to treat the infected. Just as the situation started to stabilize, long-range sensors lit up. Lieutenant Chen's voice was tense as she reported, "Captain, we've got multiple ships approaching. It's a mixed fleet of Earth and Missourian vessels." "Allegiance?" Steele demanded. "Unknown, sir." Captain Steele's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. "Battle stations," he ordered, his voice calm but resolute. "Prepare for all contingencies." As the unknown fleet drew nearer, the Unity's crew readied themselves for a potential confrontation. The fate of 2 species hung in the balance, and the next few moments would determine whether they faced reinforcements or a new threat. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the unknown fleet drew closer, its intentions still unclear. "Initiating evasive pattern Delta," Captain Steele announced, his hands flying over the holographic controls. The Unity responded instantly, its enhanced engines allowing for tight maneuvers that would have been impossible for a standard vessel. As the ship weaved through space, maintaining a protective position over the colony world, Darren's voice cut through the tense silence. "Captain, I've established contact with the lead vessel. It's Admiral Elena Zhao." A collective sigh of relief swept through the bridge. Admiral Zhao's reputation for fairness and commitment to human-Missurian cooperation was well known. "On screen," Steele ordered, straightening his uniform. Admiral Zhao's face appeared, her expression a mix of concern and grit. "Captain Steele, we've come in response to the intel your team has been transmitting. We're here to help." After a brief exchange confirming their allied status, the Unity docked with the task force's flagship. Steele, Darren, and Dr. Holt made their way through the sleek corridors, the mix of human and Missurian crew members a testament to the cooperation that had been forged in the face of this crisis. In the flagship's conference room, they found Admiral Zhao waiting, surrounded by a team of senior officers from both species. The holographic displays around them flickered with real-time data from across known space. "We don't have much time," Zhao began without preamble. "Your team's efforts have been invaluable. Similar cure dispersal operations are underway on Earth in Missouria as we speak." Dr. Holt leaned forward, his eyes scanning the data. "Any complications with the formula?" "None so far," a Missourian officer replied. "The cure's effectiveness has been consistent across all test groups." Darren, who had been studying a tactical display, frowned. "Admiral, these movement patterns. Are these confirmed?" Zhao's expression darkened. "You have a good eye, Mr. Rice. We've detected several ships breaking away from their assigned patrols. We believe they're aligned with the conspiracy and potentially carrying samples of the enhanced virus." Captain Steele's mind raced, already formulating a plan. "The Unity's enhancements make us uniquely suited to track them down." Admiral Zhao nodded in agreement. "Exactly what I was thinking, Captain. While the bulk of our forces secure the remaining production sites, I want your team to hunt down these rogue elements." As they hammered out the details of their strategy, Chief Engineer Yamamoto's voice came through Steele's communicator. "Captain, we've integrated some of the task force's sensor technology with our Progenitor systems. Our tracking capabilities have increased by 37%. "Excellent work, Takashi," Steele replied. Turning to Admiral Zhao, he added, "We're ready to begin the pursuit immediately." Back aboard the Unity, the crew prepared for their new mission with practiced efficiency. Phoebe and Zara worked in tandem at their stations, their enhanced abilities allowing them to process vast amounts of data in search of the faintest trail. "Captain," Phoebe called out, her eyes glowing faintly as she interfaced with the ship's systems. "We've detected a potential sighting near a space station in the neutral zone." "Plot a course," Steele ordered. "Maximum speed." The Unity surged forward, its Progenitor-enhanced engines pushing it to velocities that would have torn a normal ship apart. As they approached the coordinates, the space station came into view on the main screen, its usual bustle of activity conspicuously absent. "Life support systems are malfunctioning," Zara reported, her voice tight with concern. "There are signs of a potential virus release." Steele's teeth clenched. "Prepare a boarding party. Full containment protocols." Commander Krax led the team, their specialized suits gleaming under the harsh lights of the Unity's launch bay. Dr. Vance ran a final check on their equipment, ensuring each member carried samples of the cure and the means to deploy it. As the boarding shuttle detached from the Unity, Steele watched from the bridge, his posture tense. "Keep scanning for any signs of that rogue ship," he ordered. "They can't have gotten far." The minutes ticked by slowly as they waited for word from the boarding party. Finally, Krax's voice crackled through the comm system. "Captain, we've secured the central control room. We've found survivors, including a Dr. Lydia Bryant. She claims to have been working on an independent cure." Dr. Holt, who had been monitoring the situation from his lab, interjected. "Bryant? I know her work. If she's involved, this could be significant." As Krax's team began the process of decontaminating the station and gathering data, an alert sounded from the tactical station. Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew over her console. "Captain, we're detecting a faint warp signature leaving the system." "That has to be our rogue ship," Steele said, his voice hard. "Disengage from the station. Leave a team to finish the evacuation. We're going after them." The Unity broke away from the space station, its engines flaring to life. As they entered warp, following the fading trail of their quarry, the crew knew that the next few hours could determine the fate of two civilizations. The rogue ship was out there, carrying a deadly cargo, and only the Unity stood between them and potential catastrophe. Phoebe and Zara worked tirelessly, their enhanced minds interfacing directly with the ship systems. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they pushed their abilities to the limit, tracing the faintest echoes of the rogue ship's passage through space. "We've got it," Zara announced, her voice strained. They're headed for an asteroid field near the border of explored space. There's something there, a hidden facility, heavily shielded. Captain Steele's eyes narrowed as he studied the data. This has to be their fallback position. Alert Admiral Zhao. We're going in. In guns blazing, Steele said, his voice filled with willpower. But we need to be smart about this. Phoebe, can you give us a detailed scan of that asteroid field? Phoebe's eyes glowed as she interfaced with the ship's advanced sensors. Scanning now, Captain. The field is dense, with numerous large asteroids that could provide cover. The facility appears to be located within the largest asteroid at the center. Perfect, Steele nodded. We'll use the asteroids to mask our approach. Lieutenant Chun, plot a course that will keep us hidden until the last possible moment. As the Unity carefully maneuvered through the asteroid field, Captain Steele called a strategy meeting with his key officers. Darren Rice, Commander Krax, and Dr. Vance gathered around the holographic display in the briefing room. We need to gather intelligence and disrupt their operations before they can unleash another virus, Steele began. I propose a two-pronged approach. A small team will infiltrate the facility, while the Unity stands ready to engage any incoming threats. Darren leaned forward, studying the holographic model of the asteroid. I can lead the infiltration team. With Phoebe's remote hacking abilities, we should be able to bypass their outer security measures. Agreed, Steele said. Take Dr. Vance and 3 of our best operatives. Your primary objectives are to gather intelligence and sabotage key systems. As the team finalized the details of their plan, Chief Engineer Yamamoto's voice came through the intercom. Captain, I've finished integrating the Progenitor enhancements with our cloaking technology. The Infiltration shuttle should be undetectable to their sensors. Excellent work, Takashi, Steele replied. Prepare the shuttle for immediate launch. Minutes later, Darren's team boarded the modified shuttle, their gear checked and double-checked. Dr. Vance carried specialized equipment to analyze and contain any virus samples they might encounter. As the shuttle detached from the Unity, Steele watched from the bridge, his posture tense. Maintain position behind this large asteroid, he ordered. Be ready to provide support at a moment's notice. The infiltration team's shuttle glided silently through the asteroid field, its Progenitor cloaking technology rendering it invisible to both visual and electronic detection. As they approached the central asteroid, Phoebe's voice came through their comms. I've identified a maintenance airlock on the facility's outer hull, she reported. Initiating remote hack now. The team held their breath as Phoebe worked her digital magic. After a few tense moments, the airlock cycled open, allowing the shuttle to slip inside undetected. Darren led the way as they exited the shuttle, their movements silent and precise. The facility's corridors were dimly lit, casting long shadows that the team used to their advantage as they avoided security patrols. Using the facility schematics Phoebe had extracted from the security systems, they made their way to a central data hub. Dr. Vance immediately set to work, connecting his equipment to download critical information about the conspiracy's plans and the latest virus strains. This is incredible, Vance whispered, his eyes wide as he scanned the incoming data. They've made significant advancements in viral engineering. If this got out, it won't, Darren assured him, keeping watch at the door. How much longer? Just a few more minutes, Vance replied, his fingers flying over the holographic interface. While Vance worked, Darren and the other operatives moved through the nearby sections of the facility, planting disruptive devices at key junctions. These would sabotage the facility's defenses and communication systems when activated, providing crucial advantages if things went south. As they regrouped at the data hub, a distant alarm began to sound. Darren's hand flew to his earpiece. "Unity, what's happening?" Captain Steele's voice came through, tense but controlled. "We detected an incoming ship matching the signature of the rogue vessel we were tracking. They're on an approach vector to the facility." "Understood," Darren replied. "We've got what we came for. Beginning exfiltration now." The team moved swiftly through the corridors, their path back to the shuttle now complicated by increased security presence. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of scientists rushing to secure virus samples. Time seemed to slow as both groups registered each other's presence. Then chaos erupted. Darren and his team reacted with trained precision, taking cover as they returned fire. The narrow corridor echoed with the sound of energy weapons and shattering equipment. "We need those samples," Dr. Vance shouted over the din. Darren nodded, signaling to one of the operatives. They executed a coordinated maneuver, providing covering fire as Darren sprinted forward, vaulting over an overturned cart. He tackled the lead scientist, wresting the case of virus samples from his grasp. "Got them," Darren called out, securing the case to his suit. As alarms blared throughout the asteroid, the infiltration team fought their way back towards their entry point. Heavy security forces converged on their position, forcing them to deviate from their planned route. "This way," Dr. Vance called out, gesturing towards a narrow maintenance shaft. According to the facility layout, this should lead us back to the airlock level. The team squeezed through the tight space, the sounds of pursuing security forces echoing behind them. As they emerged onto a lower level, they found themselves in the middle of a storage area, surrounded by crates and equipment. "Take cover," Darren shouted as a security team burst through a nearby door. A fierce firefight ensued, with Darren's team using their superior training and equipment to hold off the facility's forces. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, leaving scorch marks on crates and walls. As they neared the airlock where their shuttle waited, Darren's comm crackled to life. Captain Steele's voice came through, punctuated by the sounds of weapons fire. "Darren, be advised. We've engaged hostile forces outside the asteroid. Your exit vector may be hot." Darren gritted his teeth as they reached the airlock. "Understood, Captain. We'll manage." As the team piled into their shuttle, Dr. Vance noticed something wrong. "The propulsion system's been damaged," he reported, his fingers dancing over the controls. "Must have been hit by debris from the space battle." "Can you fix it?" Darren asked, taking up a defensive position at the shuttle's entrance. Vance nodded grimly. "I can reroute power and reconfigure the system, but I'll need time." "You've got it," Darren replied, signaling to the other operatives. "Defensive positions. We hold this point at all costs." As Dr. Vance worked feverishly to repair the shuttle, Darren and the others used the vessel as a makeshift fortress, returning fire at the waves of security forces attempting to breach the airlock. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, a massive electromagnetic pulse washed over the facility. Security systems flickered and died, and the enemy's energy weapons sputtered into silence. "Now's our chance," Darren shouted. "Vance, are we operational?" "Just barely," the doctor replied. "But it'll have to do." The shuttle lurched to life, its damaged systems protesting as they lifted off. They burst out of the airlock into the chaos of a full-scale space battle. The Unity was engaged with multiple enemy vessels, its Progenitor-enhanced weapons leaving disabled ships in its wake. "Unity, this is Rice," Darren called out as they weaved through debris, requesting immediate extraction. "Copy that," Steele's voice replied. "On our way." The Unity executed a series of precise maneuvers, creating a corridor through the battlefield for the shuttle's approach. As they neared the ship, Darren saw energy bolts flash past their viewport. "Evasive action," he called out, but it was too late. The shuttle rocked violently as it took a glancing hit. Warning lights flashed across the control panel as they spiraled towards the Unity's open docking bay. "Brace for impact," Darren shouted, gripping his seat as the shuttle skidded across the docking bay floor, coming to a screeching halt mere inches from the far wall. As the team stumbled out of the battered shuttle, alarms blared throughout the Unity. Captain Steele's voice came over the ship-wide comm system. "All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. We have a new contact emerging from hyperspace, a conspiracy battleship with Progenitor tech. This is not a drill. All crew to battle stations immediately." Darren exchanged a grim look with Dr. Vance as they rushed towards the bridge. The real fight, it seemed, was only just beginning. The Unity shuddered as another volley of energy blasts impacted its shields, causing the bridge crew to brace themselves against their stations. Captain Steele's mind raced, quickly assessing the situation. "Deploy our Progenitor-enhanced sensor drones," he ordered. "Let's get a full tactical map of this asteroid field." Within moments, a swarm of small, sleek drones erupted from the Unity's launch bays, dispersing throughout the area. The holographic display on the bridge came alive with a detailed 3D representation of the battlefield, revealing the positions of both Allied and enemy forces. "Sir," Lieutenant Chin called out, "I'm detecting a massive energy signature emerging from hyperspace. It's a conspiracy battleship, and it's armed with Progenitor tech." Steele's eyes narrowed as he studied the newcomer. The behemoth dwarfed the Unity, its hull dripping with weaponry that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. "All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers," Steele announced over the ship-wide comm. "This is not a drill. All crew to battle stations immediately." As the crew scrambled to their positions, Steele turned to Darren and Dr. Vance, who had just arrived on the bridge. "What did you find down there?" Darren held up a secure containment case. "Virus samples, Captain, and data on their latest innovations. It's not good." "Get that to Dr. Holt immediately," Steele ordered. "We need to know what we're up against." As Darren rushed the samples to the medical bay, Steele opened a channel to Admiral Zhao. The Admiral's holographic form materialized on the bridge, his expression grim. "Captain Steele, my task force is en route to your position. We'll establish a defensive perimeter to prevent any escapes. What's your status?" "We're facing a Progenitor-enhanced battleship, Admiral," Steele replied. "We'll need everything you've got." As the Unity maneuvered through the asteroid field, Chief Engineer Yamamoto's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, I've been analyzing the data from the infiltration mission. There might be a weakness in their shielding system." "Explain," Steele said, his attention divided between Yamamoto and the approaching behemoth. "Their Progenitor tech operates on specific energy frequencies. If we can recalibrate our weapons to target those frequencies, we might be able to penetrate their defenses." Steele nodded. "Make it happen, Takashi. We'll need every advantage we can get." The conspiracy battleship entered the asteroid field, its massive form dwarfing the surrounding space debris. Suddenly, its launch bays opened, disgorging a swarm of sleek, deadly fighter drones. "Enemy fighters incoming," Lieutenant Chin shouted. "Sensors indicate they're carrying some kind of payload. Stasis fields detected. They could be transporting virus samples." Steele's mind raced through their options. "Launch our fighters. Commander Krax, take the lead. Your primary objective is to neutralize those drones before they can deploy their payload." As Krax's squadron rocketed out of the Unity's launch bays, the space around the asteroid facility erupted into chaos. Energy beams crisscrossed the void, punctuated by explosions as ships and asteroids alike were caught in the crossfire. The Unity darted between massive asteroids, using them as cover while launching precision strikes against the conspiracy battleship. Each hit was carefully calculated to exploit the weakness Yamamoto had identified, slowly but surely eroding the enemy's seemingly impenetrable defenses. Admiral Zhao's fleet arrived, immediately engaging the conspiracy's support ships. The combined human and Missourian crews worked in perfect synchronization, their tactics evolving and adapting to counter each enemy maneuver. In the midst of the furious battle, alarms blared on the Unity's bridge. "Captain," Phoebe called out, her eyes glowing as she interfaced with the ship's systems. "I'm detecting a massive power surge from the asteroid facility. They're activating some kind of hidden weapon system." Steele's blood ran cold as he realized the implications. It must be designed to disperse the virus on a massive scale. "Phoebe, Zara, I need you to use your abilities to interfere with their power systems. Buy us some time." As the enhanced humans focused their considerable mental powers on disrupting the facility systems, Dr. Holt's voice came through on the comm. "Captain, we've analyzed the virus samples. It's bad news. This strain has been engineered to resist our current cure." Steele clenched his fist. "Can you modify the treatment?" "We're working on it," Holt replied. "But it's going to take time we might not have." The Unity rocked violently as a massive energy blast from the conspiracy battleship found its mark. Sparks flew from consoles across the bridge as warning klaxons blared. "Direct hit to our main propulsion system," Yamamoto reported, his voice strained. "We're operating on auxiliary power and thrusters only." Steele gripped the arms of his command chair, his mind racing through their dwindling options. The Unity was now more vulnerable than ever, relying on its reduced maneuverability and the cover of the asteroids to stay in the fight. Just when it seemed their situation couldn't get more desperate, Dr. Holt's excited voice cut through the chaos. "Captain, we've done it. We've modified the cure using elements from Phoebe and Zara's physiology. It should neutralize the new strain, but there's a catch. We need to disperse it directly into the conspiracy battleship's life support systems for it to be effective." Darren, who had returned to the bridge, stepped forward. "I have an idea, Captain. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." Steele nodded, gesturing for him to continue. "We use a shuttle equipped with the Progenitor cloaking device to infiltrate the enemy ship," Darren explained. "A small team could board, reach their life support controls, and disperse the cure throughout their vessel." Steele considered the plan, aware of the enormous risks involved. But as another blast rocked the Unity, he realized they were out of alternatives. "Do it," he ordered. "Assemble your team and prepare for immediate launch. We'll create a diversion to cover your approach." As Darren rushed to prepare for the mission, selecting Dr. Vance and two of their most skilled operatives to accompany him, Steele turned his attention back to the raging battle. The Unity, despite its damaged state, intensified its assault on the conspiracy battleship, coordinating with Admiral Zhao's fleet to create a massive distraction. Moments later, a sleek shuttle slipped out of the Unity's docking bay, its Progenitor cloaking device rendering it invisible to both visual and electronic detection. Darren and his team were on their way, carrying with them the hopes of not just the Unity, but of two civilizations. As the cloaked shuttle navigated the chaos of the battlefield, Steele watched the tactical display with breathless expectation. The entire conflict now hinged on this audacious attempt. Darren's team's ability to infiltrate the enemy vessel and disperse the cure, and the Unity's capacity to hold out against the overwhelming firepower of the conspiracy's ultimate weapon. The battle raged on, with the Unity and its allies fighting with every ounce of skill and tenacity they possessed. But as energy blasts continued to pummel their shields and the asteroid facility's weapon system inched closer to activation, Steele couldn't help but wonder, would it be enough? Enough to save them all? A sudden explosion rocked the Unity, nearly throwing Steele from his command chair. He wrapped his hand around the chairs, steadying himself as he surveyed the damage reports flooding his console. "Direct hit to our starboard shield generators," Lieutenant Chun called out, her fingers flying across her station's controls. We're down to 30% capacity on that side. Steele's mind raced, calculating their dwindling options. The Unity was taking a beating, but they couldn't falter now. Not when Darren and his team were risking everything to infiltrate the enemy vessel. Phoebe, status on Darren's team? Steele demanded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The enhanced human's eyes glowed as she interfaced with the ship's systems. They've successfully boarded the conspiracy battleship, Captain. I'm detecting multiple firefights throughout the vessel. Inside the enemy's ship, Darren led his team through a maze of corridors, each turn bringing them closer to their objective. The air crackled with energy weapon fire as they engaged squad after squad of conspiracy security forces. "Push forward," Darren shouted, ducking behind a bulkhead as a barrage of plasma bolts seared past. "We need to reach those life support controls." Dr. Vance, crouched beside him, nodded grimly. "I've analyzed the ship's schematics. We're close, but the resistance is intensifying." Darren signaled to his operatives, and they moved as one, their Progenitor-enhanced equipment giving them a crucial edge. They leapfrogged from cover to cover, their coordinated assault overwhelming the enemy's defenses. As they fought their way deeper into the ship, the Unity executed a series of daring maneuvers outside. Steele's voice rang out over the comm system. "All hands, brace for high G turns. We need to keep their attention on us." The massive ship pirouetted through space, its damaged engines straining under the stress. Energy beams from the conspiracy battleship lanced past, missing by mere meters as the Unity danced between them. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Yamamoto barked orders to his team, sweat beading on his brow. "Reroute auxiliary power to the port shield generators. We can't take another hit like that last one." Back on the conspiracy battleship, Darren's team finally reached the central life support control room. The doors slid open to reveal a heavily fortified position, conspiracy troops entrenched behind hastily erected barricades. "Cover me," Darren yelled, diving forward as his team laid down suppressing fire. He rolled behind a console, narrowly avoiding a hail of energy bolts. Dr. Vance seized the opening, sprinting towards the main control panel. A stray shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around, but he gritted his teeth and pushed on. "I'm in," Vance called out, his fingers flying across the controls. "Initiating dispersion of the cure now." As the modified cure began flooding the ship's air supply, the effects were almost immediate. Enemy soldiers stumbled, their coordination failing as the neutralizing agent took hold. Darren seized the moment. "Now! Push to the bridge." His team surged forward, overwhelming the disoriented defenders. They fought their way through the ship's winding corridors, encountering less and less resistance as they went. Outside, the space battle raged on. The Unity, despite its wounds, continued to harass the massive conspiracy battleship. Admiral Zhao's fleet hammered away at the asteroid facility's defenses, slowly but surely wearing them down. Suddenly, Phoebe's voice cut through the chaos on the Unity's bridge. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching fast." Steele's heart raced. More conspiracy reinforcements could spell doom for their mission. On screen, "Prepare to engage." But as the new fleet materialized, something unexpected happened. A transmission crackled through their comms, and a gruff voice spoke. "This is Commodore Victor Petrov of the Coalition Forces. We're here to assist. Where do you need us, Captain Steele?" Relief washed over Steele's face. "Commodore, you're a sight for sore eyes. Focus your fire on the asteroid facility. We need to knock out their virus dispersal weapon before it's too late." As the reinforcements joined the fray, the tide of battle shifted dramatically. The conspiracy forces, caught between multiple fronts, began to falter. On the enemy battleship's bridge, Darren and his team burst through the doors, catching the remaining crew off guard. In a flurry of precise shots and hand-to-hand combat, they secured control of the massive vessel. "Unity, this is Rice," Darren called out, his voice tight with exertion. "We've taken the bridge. The battleship is neutralized." A cheer went up on the Unity's bridge, but Steele knew their work was just getting started. "Excellent work, Darren. Stand by for further instructions. We need to coordinate with Admiral Zhao and Commodore Petrov to mop up the remaining resistance." As the immediate threat subsided, new challenges loomed on the horizon. The conspiracy's vast network still posed a danger, and the task of distributing the cure to affected populations would be monumental. Steele took a deep breath, steadying himself for the complexities ahead. "Phoebe, contact Earth. We need to brief the Joint Council on everything that's happened here. And get me a secure line to the Missouria High Command. We have a lot of work ahead of us." The Unity, battered but unbroken, began to regroup. As Steele looked out at the battlefield, now clearing of debris and weapons fire, he couldn't help but wonder what new trials awaited them in the aftermath of this hard-won victory. Victory! The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the real work was just beginning. "All hands, prepare for departure," Steele announced over the ship-wide comm. "We're returning to Earth." The journey back was tense, filled with a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. As the Unity dropped out of hyperspace, the familiar blue marble of Earth came into view, surrounded by a bustling array of orbital stations and defensive platforms. "Unity, this is Earth Control," a voice crackled over the comm. "You are cleared for approach to Orbital Station Alpha. Please follow the designated flight path." As they maneuvered towards the station, Steele could see the specially prepared high-security facility where they would dock. The sleek, fortified structure stood out among the other orbital installations, a testament to the importance of their mission. The Unity eased into the docking bay with practiced precision. As the airlocks engaged and the all-clear signal sounded, Steele turned to his crew. "Darren, Dr. Holt, Yamamoto, you're with me," he ordered. "The rest of you, stand by for further instructions. We may need to debrief additional personnel later." The small group made their way through the station's winding corridors, flanked by a heavily armed security detail. They were ushered into a large, circular room where the Joint Council of Human and Missourian leaders awaited them. The atmosphere was electric as they entered. Human officials in crisp suits sat side by side with their Missourian counterparts, their bioluminescent skin casting a soft glow around the room. At the center of the gathering, a holographic display flickered to life, ready to receive their report. "Captain Steele," a stern-looking human woman addressed him. "We're eager to hear your findings. Please proceed." Steele nodded, stepping forward. He began recounting their mission, from the initial discovery of the conspiracy to the final battle at the asteroid facility. As he spoke, the holographic display came alive with images and data, illustrating the scope of their encounter. Dr. Holt took over, presenting the modified cure to the panel of scientists. "Using elements from our enhanced crew members' physiology, we've created a treatment capable of neutralizing even this advanced strain of the virus," he explained, his voice filled with cautious optimism. The scientists leaned in, their eyes widening as they examined the formula. Hushed whispers of excitement filled the room as they began to grasp the implications of this breakthrough. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Yamamoto approached a separate group of technicians, coordinating the transfer of the salvaged Progenitor technology. "Handle these components with extreme care," he instructed, his voice firm. "We've only begun to scratch the surface of what this technology can do." As the debriefing continued, Darren stepped up to present the intelligence they had gathered. The holographic display shifted, revealing a vast network of conspiracy connections spanning both human and Missourian territories. "We've uncovered evidence of corrupted officials, hidden bases, and front companies," Darren explained, his voice grave. The conspiracy's reach extends far beyond what we initially believed. The council members exchanged worried glances, the weight of this revelation settling over the room. One of the Missouria representatives, his skin pulsing with agitation, spoke up. "We must act swiftly to root out these remaining elements before they can regroup." As if on cue, reports began streaming in from various sectors of space. The cure was already being distributed, with initial results showing promising signs of the virus being neutralized. However, not all the news was positive. "We're receiving reports of difficulty reaching some remote colonies," an aide announced, her voice tinged with concern. "And there are instances of resistance from local authorities in certain regions." Admiral Elena Zhao, who had been silently observing until now, stepped forward. "In light of these challenges, I propose the formation of a permanent joint fleet," she said, her voice steady and authoritative. "A combined force of our best ships and crews, tasked with ongoing peacekeeping efforts, cure distribution, and rooting out any remaining conspiracy strongholds." The proposal sent a ripple of murmurs through the council. The potential benefits were clear, but concerns about shared military power between the two species were deeply ingrained. As the council debated, Steele's attention was drawn to a commotion outside the conference center. Through the reinforced windows, he could see crowds gathering, humans and Missourians alike, their faces a mix of hope and anxiety as they awaited news. Inside the facility, the work continued at a feverish pace. In a nearby medical bay, Phoebe and Zara underwent extensive examinations, their unique abilities still a source of fascination and potential breakthroughs. Hours passed as discussions and debates raged on. Finally, a consensus began to emerge. The Council agreed to establish a joint commission for interspecies cooperation, focusing on shared scientific research, cultural exchange, and diplomatic relations. To Steele's surprise, he found himself being offered a leadership role in this new organization. "Your actions have been instrumental in bringing our species together, Captain," the Council chairperson explained. "We believe you're uniquely qualified to help guide us forward." As the immediate crisis began to subside, new challenges emerged. Reports surfaced of isolated groups attempting to hoard the cure or exploit the situation for political gain. The Unity, still docked at the station, received new orders. "Captain Steele," the Council chairperson addressed him, "we need you to investigate a group operating in a remote colony on the fringes of Missouria space. They may be attempting to disrupt our distribution efforts." Steele nodded, his mind already assembling a team for the mission. "Understood. We'll depart as soon as the Unity is repaired and resupplied." As the meeting adjourned, Steele made his way back to the ship, his thoughts racing. The Unity's mission had expanded far beyond its original scope, and the challenges ahead were daunting. But as he looked at his crew, humans and Missourians working side by side, he felt a glimmer of hope. The Unity's engines hummed to life, the repairs completed in record time. As they prepared to launch, Steele addressed his crew one final time before their departure. "Our work is a long way to go," he said, his voice carrying across the bridge. "But together, we've already accomplished the impossible. Let's show the galaxy what humans and Missourians can achieve when we stand united." With a final command, the Unity disengaged from the orbital station, its sleek form gliding gracefully into space. As they entered hyperspace, bound for the remote Missourian colony, Steele couldn't help but wonder what new challenges and opportunities awaited them in the vast expanse of the cosmos. The Unity glided through the inky void of space, its hull still bearing the scars of recent battles. Captain Steele stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing their destination, a remote colony on the fringes of Missourian space. "Approaching the planet, sir," Phoebe reported, her enhanced senses attuned to the ship's systems. Atmospheric readings indicate minimal terraforming. Scattered settlements detected on the surface. Steele nodded, his brow furrowing as he studied the data streaming across the screens. Any signs of unusual activity? Zara, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with concentration, manipulated the sensor controls. Affirmative, Captain. Detecting irregular energy signatures and communication patterns. It appears the local authorities are attempting to mask their activities. Just as we suspected, Steele muttered. He turned to Darren Rice, who stood ready near the bridge's exit. Darren, prepare your team for ground insertion. We need to investigate those anomalies up close. As Darren's team geared up in the shuttle bay, Dr. Elias Vance double-checked his medical kit. The doctor's face was etched with perseverance as he secured vials of the cure. Remember, Darren briefed his team, a mix of human and Missouria specialists, we're here to investigate and assist, not to start a war. But be prepared for resistance. The shuttle detached from the Unity, descending through the planet's thin atmosphere. As they approached the main settlement, a sprawling complex of prefabricated structures and hastily constructed buildings, Darren spotted movement on the ground. Heads up, he warned. We've got a welcoming committee. The shuttle touched down on the outskirts of the settlement, and as the team disembarked, they were immediately confronted by a group of armed security forces. This is a restricted area, a gruff voice called out. Return to your vessel immediately. Darren stepped forward, his hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. We're here on behalf of the Joint Human-Missarian Council. We have vital medical supplies and information for your colony. The security forces exchanged uneasy glances, their weapons still trained on the newcomers. Darren could see the conflict in their eyes, the desire to follow orders warring with the need for help. Taking advantage of their hesitation, Darren's team executed a series of swift, coordinated movements. Within moments, they had outmaneuvered the security forces, disarming them without casualties. We're not here to fight, Darren explained to the stunned guards. But we will complete our mission. Now, take us to your central administration building. As they moved through the settlement, Dr. Vance's eyes widened at the sight of the colonists. Many showed signs of the virus's effects, their conditions ranging from mild to severe. These people need help, Vance muttered to Darren. And soon. Inside the administration building, the team quickly located a hidden storage area. Darren forced open the secure door, revealing shelves stocked with vials of the cure. Jackpot, one of the team members whispered. Dr. Vance wasted no time. He commandeered a nearby medical bay, working with local staff who were shocked to learn of the cure's availability. We've been told supplies were limited, one nurse explained, her voice trembling with a mix of relief and anger, that we had to ration treatment. As Vance organized the distribution efforts, Darren continued his investigation. He uncovered files detailing off-world shipments, resources being funneled away from the colony for unknown purposes. Back on the Unity, Captain Steele received Darren's report with a grim expression. Phoebe, scan for any vessels attempting to leave the planet. We need to intercept those shipments. Phoebe's fingers danced across the controls. Multiple ships detected, Captain. They appear to be loaded with raw materials and medical supplies. Launch fighter squadrons, Steele ordered. Disable those ships, but avoid destruction if possible. We need to secure that cargo. As the Unity's fighters streaked towards the fleeing vessels, Darren's team made another discovery. Hidden beneath layers of electronic interference, they found a sophisticated communications array. This is way beyond colonial standards, one of the Missarian specialists noted, his tendrils twitching with excitement. It's designed for long-range, encrypted transmissions. Darren nodded, his suspicions confirmed. They're not just hoarding supplies. This colony is a hub for the conspiracy's remaining operations. As the team worked to decrypt the communications, the Unity's enhanced sensors picked up a faint signal. Phoebe and Zara, their abilities working in tandem, isolated the transmission. "Captain," Zara called out, her skin flashing with urgency. "We've detected coordinates for a meeting. Key conspiracy figures are gathering at a nearby asteroid base." Steele's mind raced, weighing their options. The colony situation was stabilizing, but this new lead couldn't be ignored. "Darren," he communicated to the ground team, "we're leaving a support contingent to assist you. The Unity is moving to intercept a high-value target." As the Unity prepared to depart, Steele addressed his crew. "We've struck a blow against the conspiracy here, but our mission is nowhere near the end. Ahead of us lies an asteroid base, heavily defended and housing some of our most dangerous enemies. Every one of you, human and Missourian alike, has proven your worth time and again. Now, we face our greatest challenge yet. Let's show them what the Unity can do." The ship's engines roared to life, propelling them towards the asteroid base and the next phase of their mission. As they left the colony behind, Steele couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation would be pivotal in shaping the future of human-Missourian relations. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew his crew would face them together, united in purpose and persistence. Drive. As the Unity plunged into hyperspace, Captain Steele couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. Days later, the Unity dropped out of hyperspace on the outskirts of the infamous Void Nebula. The ship's sensors immediately began to struggle, overwhelmed by the dense cosmic dust and energy distortions that permeated the region. "All hands to battle stations," Steele ordered, his voice calm but tinged with urgency. The crew responded with practiced efficiency, the months of shared experiences evident in their seamless coordination. Darren Rice, now fully recovered from his injuries on the colony world, took his place at the tactical station. He exchanged a nod with Phoebe and Zara, who stood ready at their specialized consoles. "Phoebe, Zara, we're counting on your abilities to guide us through this maze," Steele said, his eyes fixed on the swirling chaos visible through the main viewport. The sisters' eyes glazed over as they tapped into their enhanced senses, probing the nebula's treacherous currents. "Navigable route detected, Captain," Phoebe reported, her voice distant. "Transmitting coordinates to helm." The Unity forged ahead, its Progenitor-enhanced systems humming with power as they adapted to the harsh conditions. Steele gripped the arms of his command chair, feeling the ship shudder as it pushed through waves of cosmic energy. Suddenly, the nebula parted like a curtain, revealing a massive space station unlike anything they had encountered before. It was a twisted amalgamation of human, Missourian, and Progenitor technology, its surface dripping with weapon emplacements. A swarm of fighter drones circled the station like angry insects. "By the stars," Darren breathed, his eyes wide as he took in the sight. Steele's mind raced, quickly formulating a plan. "Darren, assemble a strike team. You'll take a cloaked shuttle and infiltrate the station while we engage their outer defenses." As Darren rushed to comply, Steele turned to his helm officer. "Bring us in close. Let's give them something to shoot at." The Unity surged forward, its weapons blazing to life. The station's defenses responded immediately, filling space with a deadly barrage of energy beams and missiles. In the shuttle bay, Darren briefed his team, a mix of human and Missourian operatives, including Commander Cracks and Dr. Elias Vance. "Our objective is to penetrate the station's defenses and neutralize the threat from within," he explained, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. As the shuttle launched, cloaked and undetected, the Unity found itself surrounded by waves of enemy fighters that seemed to materialize from hidden hangars within the nebula. "Evasive maneuvers," Steele shouted as the ship rocked under the assault. "Takashi, we need everything you can give us." In engineering, Chief Engineer Yamamoto worked feverishly, his hands flying over control panels as he rerouted power and pushed the ship's systems to their limits. "Giving you all she's got, Captain," he reported, sweat beading on his brow. Meanwhile, Darren's shuttle slipped through a weak point in the station's shielding, identified by Phoebe's analysis of the energy patterns. They landed in a deserted hangar, the team moving swiftly to secure the area. "We're in," Darren reported via encrypted channel, moving to neutralize internal defenses. As the strike team fought their way through corridors filled with fanatical conspiracy loyalists, they stumbled upon a horrifying discovery. The station housed vast laboratories where scientists worked feverishly on a new, even deadlier strain of the enhanced virus. Dr. Vance's face paled as he surveyed the lab. "We need to neutralize these samples immediately," he said, quickly setting to work. Outside, the Unity continued its desperate battle against a swarm of enemy fighters. The ship's hull bore the scars of multiple hits, but Steele's crew fought on with relentless drive. Suddenly, a priority communication came through from Admiral Elena Zhao. "Captain Steele, be advised. The joint human-Missarian fleet has reached the edge of the Void Nebula, but we're hesitant to enter due to the dangerous conditions. You're on your own for now." Steele's lips pursed as he realized the full weight of their situation. The Unity and its crew were the last line of defense against the conspiracy's last attempt. As Darren's team pushed towards the station's control center, they encountered increasingly sophisticated security measures. The defenses seemed to adapt to their tactics, forcing the team to rely on split-second decisions and the unique synergy they had developed over their long mission together. Finally, they breached the control center, only to come face-to-face with their most shocking adversary yet. Before them stood a being that defied easy description, part human, part Missarian, and unmistakably enhanced with progenitor technology. "Welcome," the hybrid being said, its voice a discordant blend of tones. "I am the evolutionary catalyst, and you are here to witness the dawn of a new era." Darren raised his weapon, his team fanning out behind him. "Whatever you're planning ends now," he declared, his voice firm despite the uncertainty churning in his gut. The evolutionary catalyst smiled, a twisted expression that sent chills down Darren's spine. "On the contrary," it said, raising a hand crackling with energy, "we're only just beginning." As the control center erupted into chaos, the Unity outside continued its desperate fight for survival, the fate of two species hanging in the balance.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.